Chapter Object in the Water. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and his hand formed sealed to activate a low-level technique that he hadn't used in a long time. The attraction technique. The mud on the ground was lifted, and a stench quickly filled the water as the mud spread like ink. He quickly swam up to the top of the well like a squid, and the mud quickly followed like it was chasing him. Soon, Wang Lin came out of the water and waved his hand. Using the attraction technique, a large amount of muddy water flowed out of the hole. After a long time, the mud was cleared out and Wang Lin descended down the well once more. After repeating this 3 times, the mud at the bottom of the well was cleared out and what was under it was revealed. At the bottom of the well, he saw that there was a formation with 3 spots that held spirit stones. If they were just normal spirit stones, it wouldn't be much, but Wang Lin could see the red line on them, meaning that they all had to be top-quality spirit stones. Wang Lin's eyes became focused as he carefully looked down. No wonder this place has so much spiritual energy even though it's not a spirit vein. The 3 pieces of top-quality spirit stone had already turned gray from being placed there for who knows how long, and were almost all used up. However, what attracted Wang Lin wasn't these 3 top-quality spirit stones, but another object. This was a skeleton. From the looks of the skeleton, it was a woman. It was nailed to the bottom of the well using some black nails. Using 3 top-quality spirit stones to seal this skeleton. What a rich person! Wang Lin was able to immediately tell that this formation was used for sealing. Only the right index finger of the skeleton was pierced deep into the ground. After pondering a bit, Wang Lin didn't act recklessly. Instead, he swam up and was ready to leave. But just at this moment, his bag of holding released a yellow light. Something inside was forcing its way out. This was the first time Wang Lin had an item in his bag move without his control. The mysterious scroll that Wang Lin had accidentally obtained hundreds of years ago, the one that he had researched for a long time and still to this day didn't know how to use, charged out. Wang Lin's eyes became serious. The moment he took the scroll out, it caused the Forsaken Immortal Clan's ancestor to pause. This scroll must have some famous background. Now, he watched the scroll fly out and slowly open up. The scroll was completely black and waves of screams were coming out of it. Just at this moment, the skeleton at the bottom of the well suddenly began to glow purple. The skeleton's right index finger glowed even brighter. A fist-sized ball of purple light appeared before the skeleton and was completely absorbed by the scroll. The skeleton immediately shattered into gray dust, but the dust mysteriously didn't mix with the water. It instead covered the bottom of the well. This all happened very quickly. After the scroll absorbed the purple light, it began to fall slowly and Wang Lin caught it. After pondering for a bit, he decided to not investigate the scroll and charged out of the water. After coming out of the water, Wang Lin was very puzzled. After pondering for a while, he slowly opened the scroll. He saw a change in the blackness of the scroll. There was a faint, purple outline glowing on the scroll. However, if one didn't look closely at the scroll, they wouldn't see this at all. After a very long time, Wang Lin frowned. He still couldn't see through the scroll. If it was an important treasure, why was it in the hands of a core formation cultivator back then? He pondered for a bit before putting the scroll away. Then he looked at the prison and began to ponder. The skeleton under the well was very mysterious. To be sealed with 3 top-quality spirit stones, this person must have been extremely powerful. But who was the one that sealed her there? Compared to the skeleton, this scroll was even more mysterious. What exactly was that purple light? Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he said, "Mosquito beast, bring that middle-aged scribe here." The mosquito beast suddenly charged out and let out a roar that caused the snow on the mountain to tremble. Luckily, there wasn't enough snow to start an avalanche. But this roar shocked everyone inside the village. Everyone secretly groaned. They didn't dare to go outside. The mosquito beast's eyes revealed a fierce gaze as it charged down and smashed into a house. Its sharp mouth stopped 3 inches away from the person inside. That person was the middle-aged scribe. He looked at the sharp mouth before him and fainted. The mosquito beast brought the person to Wang Lin and threw him on the ground. When the scribe woke up, his face was pale and his eyes were filled with terror. Wang Lin asked, "How did you guys find this water prison?" The middle-aged scribe trembled as he spoke. "Immortal, a long time ago this was just a deserted mountain. This cave only appeared after an earthquake, and this water prison also appeared at the same time. The water always had a bad stench. Back then, the boss took a look and thought it would make a good prison, which is why this area became a prison. Wang Lin raised his head and looked at the mountain. There were some marks of the mountain collapsing before, so this person was not lying. As a result, everything became clear. This mountain was placed here to seal that skeleton. And then, however many years later, an earthquake opened up a hole in the seal and allowed the skeleton to see the light of day again. But who exactly was she? Wang Lin waved his right hand to signal the middle-aged scribe to leave. His eyes sparkled as he mused over this for a while before throwing it to the back of his mind and focusing on finding a way to help himself recover. The top-quality spirit stones inside the water were almost used up and were getting weaker and weaker. Although it would still take countless years for them to be completely used up, they can no longer satisfy Wang Lin's needs. He sat down in the lotus position and slapped his bag of holding, causing 3 top-quality spirit stones to appear. Then he once again closed his eyes to begin cultivating. In the blink of an eye, 3 more months passed. It had been over half a year since Wang Lin left Chu. At this moment, the country of Pilu had entered winter. The cold air filled the mountain and chilled the bones. The bandits in the village hadn't left the mountain in over half a year, but there was plenty of food stored in the village, so they could still get through winter. In these 3 months, Wang Lin sat motionlessly as he focused all of his attention into cultivating to gather spiritual energy inside his body. He was getting ready to try to break through the domain and seal in one go. His cultivation had recovered to the 6th layer of QI condensation with the help of the top-quality spirit stones. The mosquito beast still guarded Wang Lin, though sometimes it would look into the distance. The direction it was looking at was Chu. In these past 3 months it started to miss the thunder toad. Although they were always at odds, after not seeing the thunder toad for so long, the mosquito beast missed the thunder toad. On this day, Wang Lin opened his eyes. He slapped his bag of holding, took out 5 more top-quality spirit stones, and placed them around him. After pondering for a while, he touched the T mark on his forehead and revealed a determined look. Without a word, he closed his eyes and started to absorb spiritual energy like crazy from the 8 top-quality spirit stones. As the spiritual energy gathered around him, he emitted a green light and a refreshing fragrance slowly spread. As more and more spiritual energy gathered around his body, he began to activate the 6th layer QI condensation level spiritual energy in his body to guide the spiritual energy outside his body to collide with the seal. Wang Lin was like a metal plate, while the spiritual energy inside his body was like a small hammer, and the spiritual energy outside was like a large mallet. The 2 hammers both hit on the metal to try to create an opening. After waves of bombardment ensued, Wang Lin's face began to show how much pain he was in, and the T mark on his face emitted a dark glow. Then, the T mark began to move. From a distance, it looked like an array was turning. Every time it turned once, a large amount of spiritual energy would be absorbed by it. Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes and revealed a hint of hesitation, but this hesitation was soon replaced by determination. He took a deep breath and took out a white jade from his bag of holding. The moment this jade appeared, the surrounding spiritual energy dimmed and made way for the jade. Celestial jade, swallowing this jade is like taking poison, but the domain and seal in my body are also like poison. To use poison to fight poison is the quickest way to create an opening in the seals on my body. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Then he picked up the jade, broke off a piece the size of his thumb, and put it in his mouth. The moment the celestial jade entered his mouth, a powerful surge of celestial spiritual energy entered Wang Lin's body and surged through him like a flood. The spiritual energy in his body was immediately pushed aside. Compared to the celestial spiritual energy, it was just too insignificant. Because he had experienced swallowing celestial jade before, Wang Lin was calm as he controlled the surge of celestial spiritual energy to attack the T domain and seal. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Every collision would cause Wang Lin's body to tremble, but it would also cause the T mark to tremble. Eventually, small cracks began to form on the T mark. The ground where he sat began to crack as well with every time he attacked the seals. The cracks spread and hit some of the houses. The houses that were hit by the cracks immediately turned to dust when the wind blew by. A series of crackling sounds came from within Wang Lin's body. At this point, about 10% of the T mark on Wang Lin's face had cracked and fallen off. The moment they fell, they turned into black gas that gathered before Wang Lin's forehead instead of dissipating. Wang Lin's face was pale and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were bright. An opening in the T domain and seal finally appeared after a long time of attacking them using the celestial jade. Embarrassed, I've been remiss in saying thank you. Thank you all for pressing the like button. Thanks to the fellow Taoists for their praise. Chapter 375, Soul Refining Sect. The moment this gap appeared, a large amount of spiritual energy from outside entered Wang Lin's body. At the same time, the shattered pieces of his origin soul began to condense. Although it hadn't recovered, it was no longer dissipating. Wang Lin immediately closed his eyes and quietly cultivated. 3 days later, the sky darkened and snow covered the mountain. From a distance, the entire mountain looked like it was buried in snow. The snowflakes that were falling toward Wang Lin would melt 3 inches from his body. This caused a circular watermark to gradually form around him. The T mark on his face was no longer as prominent as it was before, and it was showing signs of disappearing. When Wang Lin opened his eyes, they were filled with spirit. 10% of the T marks are gone, the seal has loosened, and my cultivation has recovered to the early stage of foundation establishment. As a result, I will be able to just barely use a lot of the treasures inside my bag. Thanks to that and the mosquito beast, as long as I don't meet any soul formation cultivators, I will be safe. However, that piece of celestial jade is the limit my body can handle right now. If I take any more, then I'm afraid my body will be turned to dust by the celestial spiritual energy before the domain and seal are broken. Now I can only try to reach the core formation stage as soon as possible. When I reach the core formation stage, I should be able to take another piece of celestial jade and try to break the domain and seal completely. However, I only have so many top-quality spirit stones, so I can just keep using them like this. I need to find a place with dense spiritual energy to cultivate in peace. I must recover my cultivation in 9 years no matter what. After Wang Lin pondered a bit, his eyes lit up and he jumped on the mosquito beast. The mosquito beast let out a happy roar and carried Wang Lin away. Wang Lin lowered his head and looked at the fire cloud village. After killing the large burly man and the knife-scarred burly man, most of his anger had been appeased. He patted the mosquito's big head, and the mosquito let out a roar and charged forward. Slower! Wang Lin's expression changed. His cultivation had only recovered to the early stage of foundation establishment. So he couldn't withstand the speed of the mosquito beast, which was around late-stage nascent soul level. The mosquito immediately slowed down and flew slowly. While sitting on the back of the mosquito beast, Wang Lin took out the map jade and looked south. That was where the country of Pilu's soul refining sect was. One of the 3 great sects in the country of Pilu on the continent of Suzaku must have plenty of spiritual energy within the sect. The reason he chose the soul refining sect was because it was very strange. It only had a few hundred core disciples, but more than tens of thousands of outer disciples. Compared to the other 2 great sects in Pilu, the soul refining sect had the lowest amount of core disciples, but they were on par with the other 2 great sects. To be able to match the other 2 great sects with only a few hundred core disciples showed that not only were the treasures in the soul refining sect great, but the cultivation of the core disciples was also powerful. The soul refining sect would never recruit disciples from mortal children. There was only one way to become a core disciple of the soul refining sect, and that was to first become an outer disciple. Every 3 years, the outer sect disciples would have a competition where one of them would be chosen to become a core disciple. The core disciples also competed every 3 years, but in their competitions, one would be kicked out. This meant that even if someone became a core disciple, they could still be kicked out. It was very simple to become an outer disciple. As long as one paid enough spirit stones, they could gain the status of an outer disciple for a period of time. There were several large mountains around the soul refining sect with spiritual energy several times denser than normal. This was where the outer disciples of the soul refining sect resided. Although they were outer disciples, they were actually just paying spirit stones to rent a cave to cultivate in. The methods of the soul refining sect were very strange and rarely seen in Suzaku, and no one knew the reason why they did it like this. Because of this, Wang Lin chose the soul refining sect. The map had very detailed information about the soul refining sect. Wang Lin believed that the person who sold him the jade once came and was an outer disciple of the soul refining sect for a period of time. Pilu was, after all, a rank 5 cultivation country, and there were countless cultivation families that relied on the 3 great sects. These families would send a large amount of disciples to the three great sects every 3 years. None of these disciples of the cultivation families had special privileges. Unless their talent was heaven-defying, they would have to start from the bottom. Wang Lin arrived near the soul-refining sect after 7 days of riding the mosquito beast. About 500 kilometers away from the sect, he got off the mosquito beast and took out a normal flying sword. He jumped on the flying sword and flew toward the sect. Not long after, the soul-refining sect came into view, but a few kilometers away from the sect, a gentle light blocked him from entering. Wang Lin knew that this was the soul-refining sect's defensive formation, so he immediately put away the flying sword and landed. Just at this moment, a ray of purple and red light passed by Wang Lin from behind, creating sonic booms. The trees in the forest all rustled from the wind the light had created. When the red light closed in, a red-haired old man came into view. This person's face looked very strange. His mouth and nose were very large, but his eyes were very small. It looked like he could swallow the heavens. After Wang Lin saw this person, his eyes lit up and immediately stood to the side respectfully. The old man was about to enter the soul-refining sect when he suddenly turned and saw Wang Lin. He was surprised when he looked at Wang Lin. Then he looked at the scar on Wang Lin's face and shouted, "Which sect's disciple are you?" Wang Lin respectfully said, "Disciple is a rogue cultivator hoping to become an outer sect disciple." The old man looked at Wang Lin and nodded. To reach the foundation establishment stage as a rogue cultivator is not easy. You want to become an outer sect disciple to find a place to go into closed-door cultivation, correct? Wang Lin's eyes revealed a respectful gaze as he said, "That is what disciple intends." The old man waved his sleeves and said, "You are too late. The time to accept outer sect disciples has long passed. Go home and come back in a few years." With that, he was about to step into the sect. Wang Lin sneered in his heart, but revealed a respectful look. He pretended to be heartbroken as he took out a sealed box and said, "Senior, this is a flying sword that Junior found a few years ago and hasn't been willing to use. Senior, please accept this. Disciple only wishes to become an outer sect disciple." Wang Lin was able to easily see that this old man was only at the early stage of core formation. To this level of cultivator, the flying sword he took out was very valuable. The old man stopped and looked at Wang Lin with a faint smile. He thought that Wang Lin was definitely a rogue cultivator, because he was much smarter than those from the big families. He waved his hand and the sealed box landed in his palm. When he opened the box, he revealed a joyous expression. But he immediately hid the joy and calmly asked, "Where did you find this?" Wang Lin respectfully said, "Many years ago I helped a core formation cultivator. He was heavily injured, and I helped protect him while he recovered. He gifted me the sword as thanks, but Disciple's cultivation level is too low to use it." The old man's eyes lit up and he said, "Oh, what kind of injury? Describe it to me." With Wang Lin's 500 years of being a cultivator, all he had to do was casually make something up, and it would sound real. After the old man heard a little, the doubt in his heart disappeared. After all, the person before him was only a foundation establishment cultivator. Without seeing it personally, there was no way for him to describe the injury this clearly. Although there were some places that were a bit iffy, that was normal. If it was explained too clearly, it would seem fake. "Okay, I can see that you have worked hard to reach your cultivation level, so I'll make an exception. Follow me." With that, the old man entered the soul-refining sect. At the same time, he took out a token and pressed it behind him. The light preventing Wang Lin from entering immediately disappeared. Wang Lin quickly walked in. "Follow me closely. There are many restrictions within my soul-refining sect. If you enter one of them, I want to save you." With that, the old man flew forward. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a flying sword appeared. He stepped onto the flying sword and followed the old man. Shortly after, the old man stopped at a cliff. There was a luxurious palace here as well as countless houses nearby. After the old man landed, he shouted, "Chang Dawei, I am coming, red hair. What are you shouting for?" A lazy voice came from one of the houses. Soon, a middle-aged man walked out. This person's hair was very messy, like it had been many years since it was last washed. The red-haired old man laughed and said, "This is a disciple I met on the way. How about you take him as an outer disciple?" The middle-aged man let out a yawn as he glanced at Wang Lin, who was standing behind the red-haired old man. He lazily said, "Since you personally asked, how could I refuse?" The red-haired elder smiled and said, "This time I gathered over 100 vengeful souls when left the sect. I'll add them to my soul flag and make one of them a main soul. Once I finish, I'll come and drink with you." With that, the old man flew into the distance. The middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin and asked, "What is your name?" Wang Lin respectfully said, "Disciple is named Xianxia. The TA cave on this mountain will belong to you. It costs 1 mid-quality spirit stone to use it for 1 year." The middle-aged man threw a black token at Wang Lin. Wang Lin made it look like his heart was aching as he took out 2 mid-quality spirit stones. After the middle-aged man took the spirit stones, he no longer paid attention to Wang Lin and left. Just as Wang Lin wanted to leave, the middle-aged man suddenly asked, "What did you give Red Hair?" Wang Lin honestly replied, "A flying sword that a senior gave me in the past." No wonder that Red Hair was so happy. "Xianmu, although you are at the foundation establishment stage, you shouldn't be proud. Although there aren't many foundation establishment cultivators among the outer disciples, there is still a decent amount. 6 months from tomorrow is when the competition of the outer sect disciples starts. If you work hard on your cultivation, you might have a chance to become a core disciple." The middle-aged man then shook his head and walked into the room. At this moment, Lu Mei looked toward the soul refining sect from a mountain 25 kilometers away. She was holding a piece of jade. This jade was sent to her by the ancestor via messenger. Although it couldn't pinpoint Seng Yu's exact location, it would have a reaction if he was within 50 kilometers. At this moment, the jade was releasing a green light. Lu Mei whispered, "Is he at the soul refining sect?" Feebly asking, 4,000 words, does that count as a major chapter? Could it be hoping for the like button for the video and the followers too? Chapter The Last Day of the New Year. A ray of green light was flying over the eastern side of planet Suzaku. However, this person was not flying with his body, but with his origin soul. He was a mess. There were 3 fist-sized dents on his origin soul. Each one was emitting a silver light. This person was the giant demon clan S ancestor. He was heavily injured by Sun Tai's demon child and had to escape with his origin soul. He didn't even have time to worry about Wang Lin. But that demon child was very strange. It never said a word and only chased after him. In these past few months, they almost circled the entire planet once. During the chase, the giant demon clan ancestor was hit by a few of the demon child's punches. These small fist marks shouldn't be looked down upon because they had injured his origin soul. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been a cultivator for a very long time and had some secret techniques of the giant demon clan, he wouldn't have been able to get away. He was too injured to use his bloodline power again, so in the end, he lured the demon child to the extreme north. There was an ancient restriction there that had been in place since planet Suzaku was founded. Only by trapping the demon child in there was he able to get away. He was very weak at the moment, and he didn't want to attract too much attention, so he quickly returned to the giant demon clan. As for whether or not Chihu and the other clan members had made it out alive, he had long forgotten about them. After returning to the giant demon clan, he immediately possessed a clan member and began his closed-door cultivation. As for Wang Lin, he didn't dare to search for him now. Suzaku had already begun to investigate this matter, so he could only clench his teeth and helplessly give up for now. Although he didn't catch Wang Lin, he stole this mysterious flying sword. At this moment, the ancestor opened his eyes. He moved around in the body he was possessing, and his eyes darkened. This possessed body would take time to completely become his own. This time varied depending on the cultivation levels of the person being possessed, and of the person doing the possessing. The ancestor's eyes lit up. He slapped his bag of holding, and the celestial sword flew out and floated before him. The ancestor pointed at the celestial sword, and a miserable scream mixed with pleas for mercy immediately came out. The ancestor shouted, "Sword spirit, appear!" Black gas suddenly came out of the celestial sword and formed the shape of Shu Liguo. After he saw the giant demon clan ancestor, he immediately began to beg for mercy. "My lord, have mercy. Please don't kill me. I was forced by that person named Wang. My hatred for him isn't any less than yours, my lord. I hate him to the bones." After the giant demon clan ancestor heard Shu Liguo's words, he was stunned and then immediately smiled. "You are certainly a strange sword spirit. Most sword spirits are very determined and loyal. Shu Liguo immediately revealed a pleasing smile and said, "Your grandpa Shu." The ancestor stared at Shu Liguo. Shu Liguo quickly changed his expression and said, "How could those servant sword spirits compare to me? A wise man knows who they should follow." The giant demon clan ancestor looked at Shu Liguo and then shot a ray of green light at him. Shu Liguo immediately began to scream miserably while speaking badly about Wang Lin. The ancestor snorted and removed the spell. He then shouted, "From today onward, you are my sword spirit. Since you surrendered on your own, I want to place a restriction on you. After all, in my hands, you want to be able to escape anyway." In truth, that green light was meant to be a seal, but it only hurt Shu Liguo instead of sealing him. This old man was very surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. He decided to research it more once he adjusts to his new body. Shu Liguo immediately revealed a thankful expression. He patted his chest and said, "My lord, don't worry, I have always been loyal. That Wang Lin mistreated me, so I rebelled against him, but my lord treats me so well, I wouldn't dare to betray you. This is my oath. If I break it, let 10,000 demons pierce my heart." Seeing this, the giant demon clan ancestor lightened up. Shu Liguo let out a sigh of relief. He secretly thought, "It seems your grandest Shu Liguo is smart. I don't know when that fiend will come and save me, so I must resist. I will first give in and then get back at this old man in the future. I, Shu Liguo, am very loyal. That fiend has been good to me, so how could I betray him?" The giant demon clan ancestor's eyes lit up. He originally wanted to wipe this sword spirit out and replace it with his own. However, if it was not the initial sword spirit, he wouldn't be able to use the sword's full power. More so, this sword spirit was not simple. It had gained enough intelligence to beg for mercy and to please others. Thus, it made him even more unwilling to give it up. It has to be said that it was very rare for a sword spirit to gain intelligence. During battles, the benefits of intelligent sword spirits were great. He didn't know that Shu Liguo wasn't the original sword spirit, and that the reason he was intelligent was because he was a devil. Even if Shu Liguo were to break the oath he had just made, the punishment wouldn't harm him at all. In fact, he was waiting for the punishment to happen, because it would actually strengthen him instead. The giant demon clan ancestor pondered for a bit before putting Shu Liguo back into the sword and carefully examining it. The more he saw, the more shocked he was. This sword is definitely not normal. I don't even know what material it's made of. His eyes lit up and he carefully placed the sword inside his bag. As for Wang Lin, he took the token, flew along the mountain until he found cave 1090, and flew inside. This cave was not very big. It was very similar to the one he used back in the Heng Yue sect. All it had was a stone bed. There wasn't even a table. But the spiritual energy in here was very dense, several times more dense than outside. It was even slightly better than the well in the Fire Cloud village, which was powered by 3 almost depleted top-quality spirit stones. Although spiritual energy released by top-quality spirit stones was easy to absorb, it lacked a sense of vigor, especially spirit stones that were about to be depleted. They had no vigor at all. The spiritual energy released by the spirit vein here was much better. Wang Lin sat down in the lotus position on the stone bed and began to cultivate. 3 days later, Wang Lin opened his eyes and shook his head. He felt like it was still too slow. He slapped his bag of holding and took out 3 top-quality spirit stones. Then he placed several restrictions on the walls and the entrance before closing his eyes to cultivate again. As a result, the spiritual energy in room immediately became denser. When the spiritual energy reached the walls, the restrictions would bounce it all back, preventing it from dissipating. The cave had become like a steamer. The spiritual energy had nowhere to go, so Wang Lin became the only outlet. As he breathed, large amounts of spiritual energy surged into his body. Wang Lin's face turned slightly red as he silently cultivated. The amount of spiritual energy in his body gradually grew, but it was still far from what he needed to break the T-domain and the seal. The T-domain and seal devoured spiritual energy, so as Wang Lin's cultivation level increased, they became even harder to break. Time slowly passed. It has been a month since Wang Lin became an outer disciple of the soul refining sect. On this day, Wang Lin opened his eyes. His eyes were brighter than before. In this past month, he had been absorbing spiritual energy like crazy. Of the 3 top-quality spirit stones, 2 had already turned to dust, and the last one was about to expire as well. After wasting so many resources, his gains this month were also great. He started at the early stage of foundation establishment and managed to reach the peak of the mid-stage of foundation establishment, only 1 step from the late stage. It is still too slow. I had to waste top-quality spirit stones to barely reach this stage. I only have 15 top-quality spirit stones left. These won't be nearly enough. Wang Lin sighed and moved his body. Cracking sounds filled the room as countless cracks appeared on the stone bed. Cracks even appeared on the surrounding walls. Wang Lin was startled at first, and then he pondered a bit. He immediately understood that it was because the spiritual energy was too dense for the cave to handle. If this continued, the cracks would become even larger. I can't use this cave anymore. I have to change caves. Wang Lin's hand pressed on the wall, and all the cracks immediately closed up. Even the stone bed returned to normal when Wang Lin pressed on it. However, Wang Lin knew that this was only on the surface. If the spiritual energy increased, the cracks would reappear. But as long as he refrained from using top-quality spirit stones, the cracks wouldn't appear, and he wouldn't arouse any suspicion. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Then he stood up, opened the cave's door, and walked out. It was currently dusk, and the distant sunset emitted a red glow. Today was the last day of the year. Wang Lin looked at the sunset. The winter's sunlight didn't contain much warmth. By the time it landed on one's body, it was already cold. He pondered a bit, and remembered that today was the last day of the year. Once today passes, it will be a new year. He thought about what little Joru could be doing. Was she still bullying Little White? Thinking about this, Wang Lin let out a faint smile. He faced the sunset and took a deep breath. Wang Lin muttered to himself, "Life rises from the ashes." From his place high up in the heavens, he was suddenly beaten down into becoming immortal. But he was able to get through it all with his determination. It wasn't until today that he could lament about it and mutter those words. As he thought about what had happened since he lost his cultivation, a complex feeling appeared in his heart. Today, the last day of the year, represented Wang Lin's fall, but tomorrow was the first day of the new year, representing infinite new possibilities. Wang Lin whispered, "It has passed." At this moment, a girl's beautiful figure slowly flew toward the soul refining sect in the sunset. Wang Lin's eyes became focused. This person looks familiar. Leo dreams of getting a lot of likes for this video, having many followers, plenty of shares, and everyone praising his good reading and the number of words he can read. So happy. Chapter 377, Gathering Spirits. Wang Lin carefully looked at the girl as she floated into the inner part of the soul refining sect. This person is a bit familiar. Wang Lin took one more look and pondered a bit, but he wasn't able to remember where he had seen this person before. He floated down from the mountain and arrived before the buildings near the center of the mountain range. The middle-aged man was currently cultivating with his eyes closed. When Wang Lin landed, he casually glanced at Wang Lin, but then his eyes were immediately filled with shock, and he stared wide-eyed at Wang Lin. "Hey!" Reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment. This person's face was filled with shock. Wang Lin secretly sighed. Because his origin soul collapsed, he couldn't hide his cultivation level, so this core formation cultivator could see through him. Wang Lin secretly thought, "I must quickly recover my origin soul, or else it will be a problem in the future." He respectfully said, "Disciple was already at the edge, and because this place has plenty of spiritual energy, I got lucky and made a breakthrough to the mid-stage of foundation establishment." The middle-aged man's expression didn't change, but he began to ponder. What Wang Lin said wasn't strange, but his cultivation speed was a bit too fast. He took a good look at Wang Lin, and after memorizing who Wang Lin was, asked, "Why did you come here?" Wang Lin clasped his hands and said, "Disciple wants to change to a cave with more spiritual energy." The middle-aged man frowned. "Cultivator shouldn't be too greedy. Your cultivation speed is too fast, so your foundation is unstable. If you keep this up, you will never reach the core formation stage." Wang Lin pondered a bit and said, "Disciple understands, but I hope senior can agree." The middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin and said, "Since you insist, I won't try to stop you, but to change rooms costs one more mid-quality spirit stone." Wang Lin bitterly smiled. He looked heartbroken as he handed over a mid-quality spirit stone. The middle-aged man took the spirit stone and said, "Give me your token." Wang Lin handed the token over. After the middle-aged man put it away, he took out another token and said, "The lower the number, the more spiritual energy there is inside." With that, he threw the token at Wang Lin. After catching the token, he saw the number on it, 803. Then he quickly thanked the middle-aged man before leaving. It wasn't until he left that the middle-aged man's eyes lit up, and he muttered to himself, "Strange." Then he flew to cave 1090. In the blink of an eye, he arrived inside the cave. He searched the cave for a while but found nothing wrong. Then he began to ponder. Was I being too paranoid? Was he just indeed at the brink of a breakthrough which resulted in his cultivation speed being so fast? The middle-aged man pondered a bit and then walked out of the cave. He decided to pay more attention to this person called Xianxia. Wang Lin flew along the mountain with the token until he found cave 803. The size of the cave was the same as 1090 seconds, but in the center of the cave was a small formation. This formation was very complicated. It even gave off the feeling that it wasn't real. After Wang Lin entered the cave, his gaze fell on the formation. He looked at it for a while and found that it was actually a simple spiritual energy gathering formation. There were many unnecessary things added to it, which were clearly there to prevent people from figuring the formation out. The purpose of this formation was to gather the surrounding spiritual energy to create an area with dense spiritual energy. However, this formation had to be used on top of a spirit vein eye, or else it wouldn't be very effective. Spirit vein eyes were like acupuncture points on a person's body. This place can be a spirit vein eye, so it must be a pseudo-spirit vein eye. Wang Lin looked at it for a while and figured out its secret. Although he had his cultivation sealed by the T-domain and the seal, he was a soul formation cultivator. With his 500 years of experience, he was instantly able to see through the formation. It has to be said that even core formation cultivators would have a hard time seeing through this formation. Only at the nascent soul stage could one see it, but they would still have a very hard time understanding it. Especially because there were many redundant things added on top of the formation, making it even harder to see through. After all, for the soul refining sect to turn this entire mountain into caves for the outer disciples, they must have taken measures to prevent people from seeing through the formation. However, the ancestor of the soul refining sect would never have imagined that a soul formation cultivator would be in the mountain for outer disciples. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he moved his right hand over the formation to find that there was an even more complicated formation under this one. Wang Lin looked at it and thought, "I believe this formation is the one that's creating a pseudo-spirit vein eye by linking it to the real one." He pondered a bit before returning the formation back to normal. He sat down in the lotus position and placed restrictions on the walls again. Then he took out 3 top-quality spirit stones and began to cultivate again. The spiritual energy here was several times more dense than in room. After all, this place had the spiritual energy gathering formation here, along with a formation that pulled from the spirit vein to create a fake spirit vein eye. The spiritual energy here would naturally be much more dense. Adding on 3 top-quality spirit stones, the density of the spiritual energy here had reached a frightening degree. Even if a nascent soul cultivator saw this, they would steal it without any hesitation. By cultivating here, their cultivation speed would increase greatly. Wang Lin immersed himself in cultivation and forgot about time. His entire body was covered in a layer of spiritual energy frost. When the spiritual energy reached a certain density and wasn't able to go anywhere, it would condense into blue frost. Right now, the entire floor of the cave was covered in this blue frost, making it look very beautiful. There was even more spiritual energy frost gathered on Wang Lin's body. From a distance, he looked like a blue person. However, the T mark on his face was still very deep and looked very frightening. Spiritual energy slowly gathered inside Wang Lin's body. However, at the same time, the T-domain and seal also absorbed the spiritual energy and became more sturdy. They were currently several times sturdier than before. Time slowly passed, and Wang Lin had been in closed-door cultivation here for 2 months. In these 2 months, Wang Lin's body hadn't moved an inch. He used all of this time to keep raising his cultivation level. However, the higher his cultivation level became, the more spiritual energy it required, and thus, his cultivation speed decreased. In these 2 months, he was only able to reach the late stage of foundation establishment. He was still a certain distance away from the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. The 3 top-quality spirit stones had all turned to dust. which caused Wang Lin's heart to ache. He had decided to try to avoid using top-quality spirit stones to cultivate. On this day, Wang Lin's eyes landed on the formation in the room. His palm hit the ground and the formation shattered, revealing the other one underneath it. There isn't enough spiritual energy here. If I were to directly pull spiritual energy from this pseudo-spirit vein it should give me enough spiritual energy to reach the core formation stage. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he stared at the formation and began to study it. A formation was just a type of restriction, and Wang Lin was very familiar with restrictions. After studying it for a bit, he gained some understanding. His hand formed a seal and the spiritual energy in his body moved. His hand created one afterimage after another, and soon his forehead was covered in sweat. At almost the same moment an afterimage appeared, another one would start forming. The sweat from his forehead had already gotten his clothes soaked. This illusionary restriction was Wang Lin's own creation, and it was very different from normal restrictions. With his current cultivation level, it was very easy to create normal restrictions, but the illusionary restrictions were very difficult. Back when he was inside the land of ancient God with his core formation cultivation, he could only create several of these. Now he was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. With his current cultivation level, he could barely make one. Wang Lin's hand moved faster and faster until all of the afterimages merged into one. Wang Lin pointed at the formation and shouted. Then the illusionary restriction suddenly landed on the formation. The formation immediately shook, and then a powerful force came out of it and spread out. Wang Lin dodged the force and stared at the formation. After the force disappeared, the formation stopped working and no more spiritual energy came out. Wang Lin walked up and pointed at the formation. Then a series of crackling sounds appeared as the formation shattered, revealing a spirit stone the size of a fist. The color of this spirit stone was red, and it looked like there were clouds floating inside it. Wang Lin was able to identify it immediately. This stone was known as the crystal kun stone. It had the ability to absorb spiritual energy, but no way to store it. Without a word, Wang Lin's right hand pressed upon the red stone and it began to cultivate. Bang! An unfathomable amount of spiritual energy surged out from the crystal kun stone at an unimaginable speed and charged into Wang Lin's body. With the powerful surge of spiritual energy charging into his body, he felt his pores open and black gas coming out of them. The T mark on his face dimmed. Although it hadn't been destroyed, it was clear that it had weakened. Wang Lin felt very happy. He didn't think that directly absorbing from the spirit vein would have such an effect, but he knew that it would only be this effective the first time. Once this powerful spiritual energy surge stabilizes, he will need to find an even more powerful spirit vein to obtain a similar effect. Wang Lin took a deep breath and removed all distractions from his mind. The spiritual energy coming out from the crystal kun stone gradually leveled out until it was no longer as fierce as it was before. Wang Lin also slowly immersed himself in cultivation once again. 3,000 words in a major chapter. Wish that the like button for the video would break. Chapter 378, Crazy Recovery. 1. Country of Shuiyu, inside the Divine Snow and Ice Shrine. Li Yuanfeng was currently sitting in the lotus position and cultivating. Around him were 5 large blocks of ice. Each of these blocks emitted a 5-colored light as well as slivers of celestial spiritual energy for him to absorb. There was a piece of celestial jade the size of a thumbnail inside each block of ice. Thanks to a formation in the ice, the celestial spiritual energy underwent a mysterious change. Li Yuanfeng currently didn't look too bad, but his expression was dim and his face was pale. After a very long time, he opened his eyes and revealed a lingering look of fear. What powerful lightning! That lightning contained celestial spiritual energy. Even though I managed to reduce its power by half before it landed on me, it still managed to cause me such injuries. Li Yuanfeng tried to kill Wang Lin while Sun Tai and the giant demon clan ancestor was fighting. However, he was attacked by Sun Tai's lightning and spent a lot of effort to finally escape. He had only reached the soul transformation stage by force through a secret technique from Suzaku. He had no hope of having a breakthrough in the future. As a result, compared to those cultivators who broke through to the soul transformation stage themselves, he was too weak. Li Yuanfeng was stronger than peak late-stage soul formation cultivators but weaker than true soul transformation cultivators. So there was no way for him to stand up against Sun Tai's lightning. I don't know if Xianxia Yu died or not. Even if he didn't die, my T domain is not something that can be broken easily. Li Yuanfeng sneered, and his eyes became cold. That junior red butterfly announced that she was going into closed-door cultivation for 100 years. Once she comes out, she will definitely be a soul transformation cultivator. But at that point, my lifespan will have ended and it won't matter anymore. Why did the giant demon clan's ancestor want Xianxia Yu's body? This is very strange. Could there be something I don't know? Li Yuanfeng pondered a bit but still wasn't able to guess the reason. Inside Pilu, among one of the many mountains used by the soul refining sect's outer sect disciples, Wang Lin awakened from his cultivation. The peak of the late stage of foundation establishment, Wang Lin's eyes were bright as he took a deep breath and moved his body. The spiritual frost on his body began to move and entered his body. Even the frost on the ground and walls turned into faint blue gas and was absorbed by Wang Lin. The T mark on Wang Lin's face had faded a bit but was still very shocking. This pseudo-spirit vein eye isn't enough to meet my needs. I need to find a place with even denser spiritual energy. I believe the spot where the real spirit vein eye is located will be enough. Wang Lin rebuilt the formations to cover up the pseudo-spirit vein eye and walked out of the cave. It was sunny outside the cave. Looking into the distance, there was a hint of spring. The mountainsides were green, creating an elegant feel. Although the wind was still cold, it contained a hint of warmth. Wang Lin took a deep breath and was about to leave when his expression changed. He turned to look to the side. There were countless caves near Wang Lin's cave. He had been in closed-door cultivation this entire time, so aside from the middle-aged man, he hadn't met anyone else. Right now, at a cave 100 feet away, another person walked out. This person was wearing light blue clothes made of yarn and had a white veil over their shoulder, giving off a very out-of-this-world feel. A head full of black hair was moving along with the wind. She seemed very gentle and, along with a hint of pink on her cheeks, looked very elegant. This woman seemed to have noticed that someone was looking at her, so she looked over. Her eyes contained an unexplainable beauty. After seeing Wang Lin, she let out a smile as a response and then looked into the distance. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. He was immediately able to recognize this girl as the person he saw arriving in the sunset. Wang Lin frowned. This girl looks familiar, but I am confident that I have never seen her before. The Lu Mei from the Xuandao sect was only an avatar created from the 1,000 clone technique. Wang Lin pondered a bit and no longer cared about this girl, although she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in his life. Even more beautiful than Red Butterfly and someone Li Muan couldn't even compare to, but she still couldn't attract his attention. He jumped down from the mountain and examined it as he floated down. Then his gaze focused on one of the caves on the mountain. There wasn't anything special about this cave, and it wasn't the lowest one. From a distance he could see the number 743 on top of the cave's entrance. It should be here, Wang Lin landed, and looked at the cave. While he was cultivating, he used the pseudo-spirit vein eye to find where the real spirit vein eye was located. Looking at it now, he was able to immediately determine that cave 743 was one the closest to the real spirit vein eye. There is someone inside. Wang Lin saw that the door of the cave was sealed. After pondering a bit, he came up with a plan. He was about to return to his cave when the middle-aged man walked out of his house. His eyes lit up and he looked toward Wang Lin. In truth, was watching Wang Lin from the moment he came out. The middle-aged man's expression revealed no emotion as he said, "Jian Mu, come here." A trace of killing intent appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. He arrived 10 feet away, the middle-aged man. Peak of the late stage of foundation establishment, the middle-aged man's pupils shrank and his heart started beating like crazy. He had a hunch that there was something strange about this Xianmu. Xianmu's cultivation speed was too fast. When he got here, he was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. When the middle-aged man next saw him, he was at the mid-stage of foundation establishment. Now that the middle-aged man saw him again, he had already reached the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. The middle-aged man licked his lips as his heart pounded. He didn't hesitate to think that the next time they meet, this person will have already reached his cultivation level. The early stage of core formation. This Qianmu either has some heaven-defying treasure or his cultivation method is very mysterious. The middle-aged man stared at Wang Lin and smiled. Qianmu, I'm afraid that the next time we meet, I'll have to call you fellow cultivator. Wang Lin glanced at this person and said, No problem. A hint of ill intent appeared in the middle-aged man's eyes, but he quickly hid it and smiled. Qianmu, if you can reach the core formation stage, you will have a good chance in the competition to become a core disciple a few months from now. Once you become a core disciple, you have to remember to come back every now and then. Wang Lin faintly smiled and said, Of course, but the spiritual energy in my room isn't enough. I wonder if I can change to another one. The middle-aged man was startled and was a bit embarrassed. The caves numbered under 700 require an elder's permission. However, I can help you apply for it once. Wang Lin shook his head and said, You don't have to go through that much trouble. I just want cave 743. The middle-aged man looked at cave. He laughed and said, That is no problem, but Qianmu, although cave has more spiritual energy, it isn't the best. No problem? Wang Lin laughed and took out 2 mid-quality spirit stones. I have constantly had to bother Senior. This extra spirit stone is something to show my respect. After the middle-aged man accepted it, he secretly sneered. Right now is not the time, but when night comes, no matter how many spirit stones you give me, I am still going to find out how you cultivate so fast. Although he was thinking about this in his heart, he laughed. He took out a jade, recorded a message, and flicked it. The jade flew out. Under the control of the middle-aged man, it flew into cave 743. After a while, a person flew out from cave. He was wearing black, and his face was filled with meat. He looked more like a butcher than a cultivator. He landed before the middle-aged man and clasped his hands. Senior, what do you wish to speak with me about? The middle-aged man said, Give me your token. I am changing your room. Change caves? I am not changing. I am cultivating just fine in there. Why should I change? This person snorted. His gaze landed on Wang Lin and he sneered. Are you the brat that wants to change? Give me 100% mid-quality spirit stones or else don't even dream about it. With that, he returned to cave 743 without even looking at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at that man's back. He decided that after he deals with Qianmu, he will definitely make that person pay. Qianmu, you can go back first. I'll find a different cave for you tomorrow. The middle-aged man's voice was filled with determination. He clearly wasn't going to let Wang Lin speak anymore. He waved his sleeve and returned to his house. Wang Lin's expression remained normal as he flew back to his cave. He sneered in his heart. If the middle-aged man doesn't come to bother him, then that means the middle-aged man wasn't destined to die. However, if the middle-aged man gives into greed and comes to him at night, then Wang Lin can only kill him. It was completely silent late at night as the middle-aged man walked out of his house. He looked at Wang Lin's cave and greed filled his eyes. 3,000 words in a major chapter, hoping to be shared, hoping to get the like button hit for the video. Chapter 4 years. Apprentice Brother Zhang gave Wang Zhuo a cold look and said, The key to breaking through really does have a lot to do with your talent. Some people only need a few attempts to succeed, while others need hundreds or thousands of years or never even break through in their life. Wang Lin revealed a melancholy expression and suddenly asked, Apprentice Brother Zhang, is breaking through every layer this difficult? Is breaking from the second to third and third to fourth as hard? Apprentice Brother Zhang nodded, yes. The later the stage, the harder it is, especially the third to fourth and fifth to sixth layer. Apprentice Brother Zhang's answer also attracted a few other disciples. A female disciple suddenly asked, Apprentice Brother, what is so difficult about going from the third to fourth layer? I am currently in the R&D layer. Wang Lin knew the person that talked. It was the girl named Zhou that Wang Huo was pursuing. Apprentice Brother Zhang pondered a while and said, Fine. Just today I'll tell you guys about the 2 bottlenecks you will face below the 6th layer of QI condensation. The first bottleneck is from the 3rd to 4th layer. For some people it's very easy, but for others, it's something they might never get past in their entire life. The key has nothing to do with talent, but in one's ability to understand the meaning behind the phrase, the road is merciless. He gave everyone a thoughtful look and continued, Immortals need to cut away their mortal ties. If you can do it, then the 3rd to 4th layer is easy. If not, then it becomes hard. As for the bottleneck at the 5th to 6th layer, that is a change in the quality of spiritual energy in your body. Spiritual energy slowly changes your body, and at that point, it starts making deeper changes. This requires a large amount of spiritual energy, so it became a bottleneck that blocks a lot of people. After Wang Lin finished listening, he was stunned and silently pondered. The other inner disciples all had different expressions and continued to ask questions. It wasn't until it became dark that everyone dispersed. Wang Lin wandered into the valley, following the sound of water, frowning. Soon, a lake appeared before him. A faint scent of spiritual energy was emitted from the water. Wang Lin went and drank some of the water. Although it couldn't match the spiritual energy liquid, it still contained enough to help increase his spiritual energy. So he took out gourds and filled them with water, one by one. After a long time, he finally filled all the gourds and turned around. His pupils immediately shrank as he saw a second apprentice brother standing a distance away behind him, like a ghost. When he was filling the water, he was constantly scanning the area with this divine sense but didn't find anything. However, it seemed that apprentice brother Zhang had been there for a long time. Wang Lin's heart sank. Zhang Kuang's eyes lit up and said, "Brother Wang, the river does contain a lot of spiritual energy and is good for your cultivation, but I see you have a lot of gourds prepared already. Did you already know you would need them before you came here?" Wang Lin put away his things without any change in his expression and said, "Master had previously informed me that the river would help my cultivation, so disciple has prepared a lot." Zhang Kuang stared at Wang Lin for a while and said, "It is normal for Son Daju to know this. You should go back and practice. To be able to reach the first layer in only 2 short years, it seems junior brother is really determined." "That's good. I hope that when I see you again, you will be at the 2nd layer." Wang Lin clasped his hands and left. Only after he returned to his cave did he finally relax a bit. His clothes were soaked in sweat. Good thing he trained himself to constantly use the technique to hide his cultivation level, otherwise, if Zhang knew that he had already reached the 3rd layer, he would definitely become suspicious. If Zhang tried to kill him, he wouldn't have the power to fight back. Wang Lin quietly reminded himself, immortals are the same as mortals. There are many different types. In fact, the immortals are much more cruel than mortals, so I must not let anyone know I have this mysterious bead. After pulling the lever to seal the cave again, Wang Lin sat down cross-legged and started to cultivate again. The principle of cutting off all mortal desires and ties was to prevent these things from distracting them from their cultivation. But after entering the Hang Yu sect, Wang Lin found that most of the immortals not only do not cut themselves off from their desires, but become even worse. As a result, the term cut off mortal desires was a very vague expression, but according to Brother Zhang, it was the key to go from the 3rd to 4th layer, which seemed to be a contradiction. After being puzzled for a long time and still not finding any clues, Wang Lin knew that he could never cut the ties with his family. The lucky part was that the 3rd layer wasn't like the first 2 layers. Even though he couldn't break through, his spiritual energy still increased. In the end, he gave up trying to break through to the TH layer quickly and just kept building his spiritual energy up. Time quickly passed. 1 year, 2 years. Without knowing, 2 more years had passed. Wang Lin had been in closed-door training for 4 years now. He only left the cave once more to refill with water to make into spiritual energy water for this cultivation. 4 years in the real world resulted in 25 years in the dream space. Including the time from before the closed-door training, Wang Lin had been cultivating for 27 or 28 years already. His QI condensation level was still stuck at the R&D layer, but the amount of spiritual energy in his body was still increasing. It was the last day of the 4 years of intense training. Outside, an arrogant voice shouted, "Fellow apprentice brothers and sisters, the 4 years are up. Come out quickly. The head is here, preparing to send you all back." All of the caves on the cliff opened up. The inner disciples made their way out from them, one by one. Wang Lin felt, with this divine sense, that these 40-plus people all had great harvests while training here in the past 4 years. Wang Zhuo had already reached the peak of the TH layer and was ready to break into the TH layer. There were many others in the same situation. Everyone's cultivation had increased a lot. The girl named Shu was at the R&D layer, and as for Brother Zhang, he was already at the TH layer. He vaguely felt that his cultivation was different from everyone else's. Just now, when he used his divine sense to scan everyone, it seemed as if no one else noticed. The girl named Zhou had already said that she reached the 3rd layer 2 years ago, but under Wang Lin's scan, he observed that she was still at the R&D layer, with no growth at all. Wang Lin had a guess. It seemed others' 3rd layer were in T like his, without a limit. Tonight there will be 2 to 3 new chapters. Leo will do his utmost to make up for the chapters missing from the last 2 days. Chapter 379, Crazy Recovery. 2. He had been stuck at the early stage of core formation for a very long time, which was why he was kicked out of the inner sect to become a steward for the outer sect disciples. Wang Lin's cultivation speed gave him a sliver of hope. The sect doesn't care about the life and death of outer sect disciples at all, so it'll be fine if I kill him. This person is also a rogue cultivator, so after he dies, no one will search for him. Qianmu, don't blame me. Blame yourself for cultivating too fast. If I wait until you reach the core formation stage, it will be difficult to deal with you, but right now it will be as simple as waving my hand. The middle-aged man flew toward Wang Lin's cave and arrived outside of it in the blink of an eye. The surroundings were completely silent and the middle-aged man was stunned. Normally, when someone was in closed-door cultivation, the door would be completely sealed, but Wang Lin's door was only half closed. Having eliminated the need to use the J to open the door, the middle-aged man bravely entered the cave. Although he found it strange, he didn't think a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator would be his match, so he entered the cave. The moment he entered the cave, he saw Wang Lin sitting on the bed, calmly looking at him. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up, and without a word his hand formed a seal. He silently shot out a ray of spiritual energy toward Wang Lin. He didn't want to kill Wang Lin now. He wanted to capture him and question him before ending his life. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a mocking expression. He slapped his bag of holding and took out the restriction flag. He shook the flag, and then a ray of restriction light shot out of it and collided with the ray of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy immediately collapsed. You recording death, the middle-aged man sneered and spat out a 3-inch long sword. He held the sword and charged toward the restriction gas. In his mind, this late-stage foundation establishment junior couldn't withstand the power of this flying sword that had been refined by his golden core. But his smile froze. The moment the flying sword touched the restriction gas, a cracking sound could be heard. The sword broke in half straight down the middle. Wang Lin, who was on the stone bed, shook his head and sighed. When I started cultivating, you weren't even born yet? The middle-aged man's face was pale and he coughed out blood. Without any hesitation, he turned around to leave, but the restriction gas quickly caught him and dragged him back. The middle-aged man opened his mouth to speak, but after a slap from Wang Lin, he let out a miserable groan and coughed out a mouthful of blood along with some broken teeth. I am from the soul refining sect. The middle-aged man was terrified from the pain. But before he finished speaking, Wang Lin slapped him again. A hint of madness entered the middle-aged man's eyes. He had never been humiliated like this since he started cultivating. I'll fight to the end, the middle-aged man shouted, and then cracks appeared on his golden core. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Wang Lin. It would be a waste to let your golden core explode. Wang Lin shook the restriction flag in his hand, and 3 branches of restriction gas immediately shot out. In the blink of eye, they entered the middle-aged man's body and wrapped around his golden core. To the middle-aged man's shock, his golden core was torn out of his body. Wang Lin grabbed the golden core and swallowed it. The middle-aged man's body trembled. He coughed out blood, and his body weakened. He screamed in his heart, he is not at the foundation establishment stage. He is not a foundation establishment cultivator. All of his spiritual energy was being drained from his body. He clenched his teeth and managed to squeeze out, you who exactly are you? You don't deserve to know. Wang Lin arrived before the middle-aged man and pointed at his brow. The middle-aged man's eyes widened before they lost their color, and he fell down. Wang Lin shook his head. He didn't want to kill, but this person forced him to. He hit the middle-aged man's body with his hand, and the entire body turned to ashes and disappeared. Wang Lin walked out of the cave and charged toward cave 743. Outside of cave, Wang Lin waved his hand to shoot a restriction at the door. Then his body turned into a ray of white light and charged toward the door. The moment he touched the door, his body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was inside cave 743. The reason he was able to get through was because of that restriction. Who? A gasp came from inside the cave. The butcher-looking guy was sitting on the stone bed with a look of disbelief on his face, but after seeing that it was Wang Lin, he became angry, but he suddenly felt like cold water was being poured over him. He didn't know that Wang Lin had entered through a restriction, so the only thing he could think of was teleportation. Sen Senior, his voice was trembling. Before he could say more, Wang Lin arrived before him. Wang Lin pointed at the butcher-looking guy's brow, causing him to pass out. After throwing the person to the side, Wang Lin didn't even bother to look at him. His eyes fell on the right wall. Shortly after, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a flying sword appeared. He pointed at the wall and the flying sword cut into it. The sounds of stone being smashed filled the room, and soon, a hole big enough for a person to crawl through appeared. Wang Lin entered the hole after the flying sword. With the flying sword opening a path, Wang Lin followed. The tunnel went on for more than 300 feet, and at the end of the tunnel was a room that was glowing gold. Spirit vein ore deposit. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He was filled with joy. He pointed at the flying sword, which let out a hymn as if it had intelligence, and it quickly went back through the tunnel. In the blink of an eye, it arrived back in cave and stabbed into the ground next to the butcher like cultivator. The sword instantly exploded into pieces that formed a restriction, trapping the butcher like cultivator inside. Wang Lin pressed on the wall at the entrance, and the walls of the tunnel began to move. Soon, the tunnel behind him disappeared without a trace. Even looking from inside cave, one wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. Wang Lin's right hand formed a seal, and he placed a restriction on the spirit vein ore deposit. This was the same restriction he had used to get inside cave 743. He charged into the deposit and reappeared deep within it. Now he was in the depths of the mountain. There were countless spirit stone deposits surrounding him, creating a powerful surge of spiritual energy. This spiritual energy couldn't be directly absorbed by cultivators because there was too much impurity inside it. It needed to be converted before cultivators could absorb it. However, this only applied to low-level cultivators, so Wang Lin didn't care at all. The density of spiritual energy here had reached such a degree that it created a pressure similar to what powerful cultivators could create. However, this was all just natural spiritual energy, so it couldn't compare to the pressure a cultivator emitted. Wang Lin was immediately affected by the pressure once he charged in. This pressure felt like an entire mountain pressing down upon him. However, this mountain wasn't just pressing from above, it pressed Wang Lin's body from all sides. Crackling sounds came from inside his body as a result. Instead of being worried, Wang Lin was extremely happy. This was exactly the pressure he was looking for. Under this pressure, he could feel his shattered origin soul beginning to reform. I am going all the way. He slapped his bag of holding and 3 top-quality spirit stones flew out. Wang Lin took a deep breath before letting out a roar, and then the 3 top-quality spirit stones all exploded. An insane amount of spiritual energy exploded forth and fused with the surrounding spiritual energy. The pressure Wang Lin was feeling suddenly increased several-fold. Wang Lin bled from his orifices, but his eyes were filled with joy. Still need a bit more. Wang Lin clenched his teeth and 2 more top-quality spirit stones appeared and exploded. As if adding a spoonful of water into boiling oil, the spirit vein went crazy. The pressure on Wang Lin's body increased greatly. Under this powerful pressure, the shattered pieces of Wang Lin's origin soul were slowly condensing like pieces of a shattered mirror being put back together. At the same time, an unimaginable amount of spiritual energy entered Wang Lin's body. Even the T-domain and seal couldn't stop it. Wang Lin's cultivation began to recover at an extremely quick pace. Breakthrough to the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. Core formation, complete. Breakthrough to the early stage core formation. Breakthrough to the mid stage. Breakthrough to the late stage. Breakthrough to the early of stage nascent soul. The spirit vein's core began to dim, and the spirit stone deposits turned to dust which rapidly spread. 10 breaths. Only 10 breaths. In just 10 breaths of time, all of the trees growing on the mountain wilted. The entire spirit vein inside the mountain dimmed and disappeared in just 10 breaths of time. The entire mountain was now a useless spirit vein. At this moment, thousands of outer sect disciples that were cultivating inside this mountain opened their eyes. They all noticed the spiritual energy inside their rooms disappear. After that, a powerful suction force came from below them, sucking away the spiritual energy inside their bodies. Terrified, all of the outer sect disciples used various methods to leave the caves. They no longer dared to stay within them. In the spirit vein deep inside the mountain, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. He immediately teleported and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already outside the mountain. There were outer sect disciples all around him. They were all talking with shock and fear on their faces. All Wang Lin could hear was speculation about the strange event that had just taken place. As for that butcher-like cultivator, Wang Lin controlled the shattered sword to release the restriction to let him come out. When the butcher-like cultivator saw Wang Lin, he immediately became terrified. However, with one cold glance from Wang Lin, he immediately became respectful and no longer dared to make any noise. Just at this moment, a gaze was cast upon him. He turned his head and saw that beautiful woman looking at him with a friendly smile. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't have time to deal with this woman. He glanced coldly at her and then withdrew his gaze. Peak of the mid-stage of nascent soul. I didn't expect that my action just now would allow me to recover to this level of cultivation. And along with this, my origin soul has begun to recover. Although it is not completely healed, I can now use my domain. Wang Lin took a deep breath. His eyes were calm. However, compared to all of this, the life-to-death and death-to-life experience he gained was even more important. The huge change in the mountain attracted the attention of the inner sect. 3 people came out. One of them was a white-haired elder who emitted a pressure without even being angry. He shouted, "All of you, shut up!" Good night, everyone. We will meet again tomorrow. Just wait a moment. Remember to like the video. Chapter search. The surroundings suddenly became silent. The old man shouted, "Where is Lu Fulin?" After a long time, no one responded. The old man frowned. Then he looked at the 2 next to him, and the 3 of them flew toward the mountain. Lu Fulin was the middle-aged man that got greedy. As for the 3 of them, they were inner disciples of the soul-refining sect and also the deacons of the outer sect. Wang Lin's eyes faintly lit up. The old man was at the early stage of nascent soul while the other 2 were both at the late stage of core formation. The 3 of them flew into the mountain, but only the old man flew out. He had a very ugly expression on his face. His eyes were filled with confusion, but even more filled with shock. The old man's eyes lit up, and he shouted, "You outer sect disciples can just cultivate here. None of you are allowed to leave." Then he took out a piece of jade, recorded some information, and threw it. The jade turned into a ray of light and flew into the inner sect. The majority of the outer sect disciples were startled, but there were a few that sat down and cultivated. Wang Lin was one of them. He sat on a giant tree and cultivated. After the old man arrived, he carefully scanned each of the outer sect disciples. When he went into the mountain with his fellow sect members earlier, they were terrified the moment they found out that the entire spirit vein had been wasted. When they went deep into the spirit vein and reached the ores turned to dust the moment they touched them. This occurs when the spiritual energy is sucked out of them too quickly. This whole thing was very strange. He had never heard of or seen anything like this happening since the soul refining sect was formed. His gaze swept past each of the disciples one by one. He didn't pause on Wang Lin at all. In his eyes, Wang Lin was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. He was not worth noting. Because Wang Lin's origin soul had recovered a bit, no one below the soul formation stage could see through his cultivation. Not long after, more than 10 rays of light flew out of the inner sect and arrived before the old man in the blink of an eye. When they landed, the rays of light became 10 people. Among them were 5 nascent soul cultivators, while the rest were at least at the mid-stage of core formation. One of the middle-aged scholars was at the late stage of nascent soul. He was wearing a black robe and emitted a cold aura like there were countless vengeful ghosts surrounding him. The moment he appeared, the surroundings immediately became cold. His eyes were like lightning as he coldly looked at the mountain and said, "Junior apprentice brother, what exactly happened for you to send that jade?" The old man from before immediately became respectful and said, "Third senior apprentice brother, the spirit vein in this mountain was sucked dry in almost an instant. I suspect it had something to do with these outer sect disciples." The middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he shouted, "Seal off the surroundings. If anyone dares to leave, kill them. Junior apprentice brother, follow me up the mountain to meet the sect master." With that, he turned into a ray of light and charged toward the inner sect. The old man quickly followed and the 2 of them entered the inner sect in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he coldly looked at the guards. If he were to call out the mosquito beast, he would be able to escape in an instant. However, the beast was his last resort, and he didn't want to give up such a good cultivation ground. Although his origin soul had recovered a bit, it hadn't been completely reformed yet. He tried to call out the heaven-defying bead but wasn't able to. Wang Lin pondered for a bit and didn't do anything reckless. Some light came from the horizon as the sun appeared, covering the land with warmth. The light dispelled the darkness. As the surroundings gradually lit up, the middle-aged scholar flew out from the inner sect. Following behind him were 9 people. All 9 of them were wearing red robes. Their ages varied, but the one thing they had in common was that they were all surrounded by large, vengeful souls. Looking at them from a distance, in front of the light of the sun, it looked like they were surrounded by demonic flames that reached the sky. With a gloomy expression, the middle-aged scholar shouted, "Split into 10 groups to be inspected." The 9 red-robed people behind him moved, and all activated a technique at the same time. Red gas poured from their sleeves and surrounded each of the thousands of outer sect disciples that were standing outside. The outer sect disciples were split into 10 groups against their will. Along with the middle-aged man, each of them took charge of one group and called the outer sect disciples one by one for inspection. They didn't even need to ask any questions. They simply pointed at the brow of each outer sect disciple, and a few breaths later, they would move on to the next person. Wang Lin was split into the 3rd group. His eyes were calm without any trace of panic or abnormality. These 9 people in red were all only at the mid-stage of nascent soul, so Wang Lin didn't consider them threats at all. Whenever an outer sect disciple passed, they would let out a sigh of relief. As time passed, the surrounding atmosphere became increasingly oppressive. Just at this moment, a green-robed cultivator in the 4th group moved like lightning and attempted to escape. The surrounding inner sect disciples were constantly on guard, so the moment this person tried to escape, a core formation disciple moved to attempt to stop that person. "Scram!" the green-robed cultivator shouted as he waved his hand, creating a powerful force. The core formation disciple groaned, and his body was pushed to the side. Without a word, the green-robed cultivator turned back around and rushed toward the opening. Just as he was about to make it out, the red-robed cultivator in charge of Group 4 reached out with his hands. "Come back!" 5 rays of black light suddenly flew out of his fingers. They moved like lightning, and in the blink of an eye drilled into the body of the green-robed cultivator. The green-robed cultivator let out a miserable groan and his body went soft. The red-robed cultivator dragged him back and threw him into the open space in the middle of all the groups. After that, the red-robed cultivator didn't even look at the green-robed cultivator and said, "Next person, come up!" All of the outer sect disciples were filled with fear, especially those that came with some bad intentions. Their faces became ugly upon seeing what had just happened. At this moment, the eyes of red-robed cultivator in charge of Group 8 lit up as he looked at the Palafest disciple before him, who had an expression like he was begging for mercy. The red-robed cultivator grabbed the disciple and threw him into the opening in the middle of all the groups. The amount of people in the middle gradually increased. There were now over 30 of them. The red-robed cultivator in charge of the 3rd group threw the disciple before him to the middle and slowly said, "This is normally only done for disciples entering the inner sect. But today it is being used on you outer disciples, so you should all feel proud." Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but his heart was shocked. The soul refining sect had so many outer sect disciples that came with ill intentions, but none of them could escape this kind of inspection. As for the butcher-like cultivator who was originally in cave, Wang Lin wasn't worried about him. He had already placed a restriction in that cultivator. Although Wang Lin's cultivation level had dropped, the complexity of his restrictions was not something these nascent soul cultivators could see through. In Wang Lin's eyes, this person was kind of interesting. Although the butcher-like cultivator was at the late stage of foundation establishment on the surface, he was really at the pseudo-core formation stage. But it wasn't too weird for outer sect disciples to hide their cultivation levels. "You come up!" The red-robed cultivator in charge of Group 5 pointed at the butcher-like cultivator. The butcher-like cultivator's body trembled as he quickly went up. The red-robed cultivator pointed at the butcher-like cultivator's brow, and then, after a few seconds, he waved his hand. The butcher-like cultivator let out a sigh of relief and didn't dare to look at Wang Lin. He was currently in a state of shock and confusion. When that finger landed on his brow, he felt something cold enter his body. It felt like there was a giant hand going through his memories. This feeling left as soon as it came. Before he could clearly feel what it was, the cold energy left. Not long after, it was Wang Lin's turn. The red-robed cultivator in charge of Group 3 pointed at Wang Lin's brow. Then shortly after he said, "Next!" Wang Lin calmly walked to the side. More than 1,000 disciples were inspected by noon. More than 100 of them had been thrown into the middle. The middle-aged man threw the last person into the middle and asked, "Did you guys find anything?" One of the red-robed cultivators coldly said, "Aside from these people who have their own objectives, nothing related to the matter last night." The remaining 9 cultivators all shook their heads. The middle-aged scholar pondered a bit before ordering, "You outer sect disciples go cultivate at the other mountains. There will be someone who will assign rooms to each of you." The outer sect disciples who passed the test all respectfully bowed before flying toward different mountains. As for the more than 100 cultivators in the middle, no one glanced back at them and no one cared about what would become of them. Wang Lin was given a cave in a slightly smaller mountain nearby. He sat inside the cave cultivating, his eyes sparkling all the while. "My cultivation has recovered to the mid-stage of nascent soul. Although the effect of absorbing a spirit vein is good, it is simply too dangerous. If I continue, I might lure out soul formation cultivators or even soul transformation monsters. I have already caught their attention, so I can do anything too big. However, when I was absorbing the spirit vein, I found out that there is an even bigger main spirit vein nearby. The spirit vein I absorbed was only a branch. That main spirit vein should be under the inner sect of the soul refining sect. If I can go there to cultivate, I should be able to recover my cultivation in one go. At that moment, even if I am found out and a soul transformation cultivator comes, I will still be able to escape. If worse comes to worse, I'll rip open space and escape using the star compass." Wang Lin pondered a bit. He knew that the soul refining sect was located in a rank cultivation country, meaning there were soul transformation cultivators in the sect. After thinking for a while, he made up his mind. 4,000 words in a major chapter. Read an extra 1,000 words, wishing for the like button on the video to help. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 381, First Clash with Liu Mei. The competition in June will be the best chance to enter the inner sect. Rumor has it that the soul refining sect's most prized treasure is a soul flag with more than 100 million souls. The moment it appears, the sky changes colors. It is considered one of the top treasures in Suzaku. In addition to that, the soul refining sect focuses on refining soul flags, and all of their techniques relate to the sect's treasured soul flag. Although other sects throughout Suzaku also know how to capture and refine souls, they can compare to the soul refining sect. If I can learn how they do it and refine a soul flag using wandering souls, it shouldn't be any weaker than the restriction flag. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he waved his hand. A series of illusionary restrictions appeared and landed on the surrounding walls. Then he took out a pure white celestial jade. This celestial jade was missing a piece, but the celestial energy it gave off wasn't much different from before. Now that my cultivation has recovered to the mid-stage of nascent soul, I can swallow another piece of celestial jade to attempt to break the T-mark and seal in my body. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Then he broke off a small piece of the jade and put it in his mouth. Unimaginable pain suddenly spread throughout his body. At this moment, in a valley surrounded by mountains in Chu, one could hear crisp laughter and the cries of a tiger filled with grievance. It was spring inside the valley, so the ground was covered in green grass. Little Zhou was wearing a coat embroidered with a peony flower, red pants, and she had 2 little pigtails on her head. She was now sitting on top of a tiger with black stripes, and she had a huge smile on her face. "Little White, you didn't do as you were told, so I am punishing you by making you eat with chopsticks today." The tiger let out a growl with a hint of sadness. During this past year, he was constantly being tortured by this little devil. He would often wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare. All of his nightmares involved this little devil. Zhou clapped her little hands and smiled. "Your roar is too loud. You need to be softer next time." I suddenly thought of something fun. Can you meow like a little kitten? Little White S growl was now filled with even more despair. I wonder when Uncle will come back. Little White, do you miss Uncle? Joru let out a sigh and patted the tiger's head. The tiger let out a soft growl as an unenthusiastic response. He was still thinking about how a tiger like himself was going to mimic a cat's meow. Tai Yi sat under the pagoda and looked at little Joru with a gentle gaze. After a while, he let out a soft sigh. The news of Wang Lin's disappearance had already spread to Chu, but he decided to not tell Joru. He believed that with his benefactor's strength, he would be able to get out of any danger. If benefactor said he would return within 9 years, then he would definitely come back by then. Tai Yi revealed a look of firm belief in his eyes. 100 feet away from Tai Yi sat the thunder toad. It just lied there, enjoying the warm sun. It had almost been an entire year and it hadn't moved at all. While looking at the white clouds in the sky, the thunder toad sometimes missed his life inside the land of the ancient god. Ever since it was born, it had lived there and gradually grew up in there. There were constant battles in the land of the ancient god with other beasts for food and territory, and they were often life and death battles. During these countless vicious battles, the thunder toad slowly grew up and eventually learned how to spit out balls of lightning. After that, aside from a few beasts in the land of the ancient god, it didn't have to worry about anyone else. While he was thinking of the past, the thunder toad's stomach expanded and then went back to normal after a while. He thought of Wang Lin. It was Wang Lin who brought him out of the land of the ancient god. But the one he thought of more was that mosquito. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, spring was over and it was now June. June may not have any special meaning to most, but to the outer sect disciples of the soul-refining sect in Pilu, it was a very important time. The competition among the outer sect disciples was going to take place this month. After a series of competitions, one outer sect disciple will become an inner sect disciple. Wang Lin awakened from his closed-door cultivation and opened his eyes. His eyes were clear, but if one looked at them closely, they would see that they shined like the starry sky. The T mark on his face had faded a lot, and only 8 pieces remained. These 8 pieces were also the key points of Sun Tai's seal. The small piece of celestial jade had been completely absorbed by Wang Lin. Under the pressure of the celestial jade, large amounts of the T domain and seal broke off, but he still wasn't able to remove it completely. Wang Lin muttered, "Peak of the late stage of nascent soul." He slowly stood up, took a deep breath, and walked out of the cave. What I comprehend is the heaven's life and death domain. The more I see through the world's life and death, the more intertwined they become. Before, I thought life was life and death was death, but now life can be death and death can be life. I, Wang Lin, have spent most of my life killing, so I have experienced death. In comparison to death, I haven't experienced much life. Li Muan's new life is one, and my own rebirth is another. But it is still not enough. Wang Lin walked out of the cave. He looked at the distant mountain and gently shook his head. My way of thinking has been changing after my rebirth from the ashes, especially during those few months at the Fire Cloud village. The memories from there have been engraved deeply within me. I see life as life and death as death. I see life not as life and death not as death. These two perceptions match the early and mid stages of soul formation respectively. Wang Lin's clothes flapped loudly in the wind. This experience has given me some enlightenment. If I could go back to seeing life as life and death as death, then my domain will reach the late stage of soul formation. However, I will need another breakthrough to reach the peak of the late stage of soul formation. To get to that point, my domain will also have to reach its completion. The completed domain of a peak late stage soul formation cultivator is still different from a soul transformation cultivator's domain. That Li Yuanfang's domain was able to take physical form and leave the T mark on my body. This kind of power is not something the domain of a peak late-stage soul formation cultivator can compare to. That means that the completion of a domain at the soul formation stage is only one level. Reaching the soul transformation stage requires even more comprehension of one's domain. Wang Lin began to ponder. The current him didn't notice that a beautiful woman was silently watching him from a cave in the distance. This woman's gaze was a bit complicated. It was filled with confusion, doubt, and helplessness. Back in the celestial realm, Senior Zhou Yi gave me the ascendant crystal that can help me reach the ascendant stage. This crystal must be formed by the cultivator's comprehension of their domain. Ascendant, I wonder when I will reach the ascendant stage. Right now the seal hasn't been removed, so I don't even any hopes of reaching the soul transformation stage, yet Wang Lin softly sighed. Xianxia accepted me as a disciple. Perhaps I should quickly find him, and maybe then I'll have a chance of reaching the ascendant stage, however. I am a bit unwilling to part with my current cultivation path. Situnan hasn't awakened yet, and I haven't gotten the planet crystal that can help my J-realm break through. What is more important is that everyone on that planet must have rather high cultivation levels, so if I go when I am too weak. I want to catch Xianxia's attention. Wang Lin was in deep thought until he suddenly seemed to notice something. He turned his head and saw the woman gazing at him. Who exactly is that woman? Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he floated toward that woman's cave. The woman withdrew her gaze and took a few steps back to make space. Wang Lin landed where the woman was standing. He coldly stared at the woman, not caring about how beautiful she was, and said, "Do you know me?" The woman looked at Wang Lin and gently said, "You don't remember me." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He stared at the woman for a long time, but still couldn't remember where he had met her. The mountain wind blew by and lifted her black hair, making her look like a fairy. She put her hair behind her ear and softly said, "I am called Liu Mei." Liu Mei. Wang Lin looked at the woman and after a while said, "I don't know you." Liu Mei let out a gentle sigh and then a smile. Her smile was like a blooming flower that immediately overshadowed the surroundings. Senior apprentice Wang Lin, the youth who carried the large sword on his back in the Hengyu sect. Can you really not remember? Wang Lin wasn't shocked at all when she pointed out his identity. When she called herself Liu Mei, Wang Lin had already guessed. Wang Lin blandly said, "The Liu Mei I know is a disciple of the Xuan Dao sect with water spirit roots, not a disciple of Suzaku." Liu Mei was startled. This kind of expression rarely appeared on her face. She softly asked, "What does senior apprentice brother Wang mean?" Wang Lin didn't reply but calmly looked at Liu Mei. Shortly after, Liu Mei lowered her head and softly said, "I'm afraid senior apprentice brother Wang has some misunderstanding. For you to be able to appear in the Xuan Dao sect and also be able to appear here in the soul refining sect, I don't believe anyone else besides the country of Suzaku can do this." Wang Lin cut her off and turned around to leave. Liu Mei faintly smiled and said, "With just this much, senior apprentice brother Wang was able to deduce that I am from Suzaku. Is senior apprentice brother Wang that sure? I think that you are just testing me." "Senior apprentice brother Wang, I want to lie to you. I am indeed a disciple of Suzaku." Wang Lin shook his head, revealed a mocking smile, and said, "Am I really testing you? I have seen a bracelet like yours on Red Butterfly's hand." With that, Wang Lin's body gently floated away. Liu Mei lowered her head and looked at the bracelet on her arm. When the mountain wind blew earlier, it revealed her bracelet. She looked at Wang Lin's figure as he left. Then she let out a sigh and mumbled, "He has changed a lot in the last 500 years. He is no longer an ignorant youth. The current him has a heart of steel." But what exactly is his Dao heart? Brothers, have you not yet hit the like button for the VIDEO? Wish that the like button for the VIDEO would be hit. Chapter G Realm and the Death Spell. No one knew Wang Lin's Dao heart other than himself. Wang Lin felt gloomy after Liu Mei's appearance. The country of Suzaku was like this massive giant, and its presence could be felt by everyone everywhere on the planet. The higher his cultivation level became, the more he became aware of this feeling. Although his stay at Suzaku was short, that sense of danger was engraved in his heart. No matter whether it was at the Celestial Cave where all the servants were mute, or during his fight with Red Butterfly, he felt this huge pressure on him that made it hard to even breathe. It felt like the sky covered by a massive black cloud, and unless he had the power to break through the black cloud, there wasn't any way to resist. The country of Suzaku was the supreme ruler of the planet Suzaku. However, from Wang Lin's point of view, although the country of Suzaku was the ruler, there was a hint of death. This wasn't a real death or but a feeling. The country lacked change, and without change it was dying. "I'm afraid that Suzaku has reached its end." Wang Lin raised his head and looked into the distance. That direction was where Suzaku was located. 2 days later, the competition in the outer sect began. The tens of thousands of disciples were divided among hundreds of arenas. There were dozens of fights a day on each arena. Among these outer sect disciples, there were rogue cultivators and cultivators from cultivation families. All of them had the goal of joining the inner sect. There was only one rule, and that was to win. They didn't care about the life and death of the outer sect disciples at all. If you had the ability, you could kill everyone and they wouldn't care. There was even a rumor that the more you killed, the higher chance you have of entering the inner sect. If there was someone who killed everyone they fought, their chances of entering the inner sect would be unimaginably high. This rumor would go around every time the competition started. A long time ago, there was one fiend who killed his way through the competition. Although he failed to win, he was still accepted into the inner sect in the end. The one extraordinary occurrence caused this rumor to spread like wildfire. Every time there was competition, less than half of the outer sect disciples would be alive after it ended. The losers would have to pay even more spirit stones to ensure that they could stay for the next competition. No one could keep track of or knew how many outer sect disciples had died throughout all these years. After each competition, the main soul flag in the sect gained countless souls. The entire soul refining sect kept on growing stronger thanks to this cruel method. Every day, a large amount of outer sect disciples died. The more than 100 battle arenas were flooded with blood. Wang Lin carefully observed over these past few days. Every time someone died, their soul would be absorbed by the arena and disappear. On the day of Wang Lin's battle, he gently floated onto the battle arena. A core formation inner disciple wearing a black robe was managing this battle arena. He coldly looked at Wang Lin and was shocked to find that Wang Lin's cultivation level was close to his. Not many outer sect disciples could reach this level of cultivation. He said, "Number 89722, battle." A shout came from the surrounding disciples, and then a short and fat disciple jumped out from among the disciples like a ball of meat and landed on the arena. He didn't say a word. Right after he appeared, his hand formed a seal and balls of fire appeared. Then they smashed down toward Wang Lin like a rain of fire. Late stage of foundation establishment, Wang Lin shook his head. For this competition, he had locked his cultivation level to the mid-stage of core formation. He waved his hand and jumped off the stage. The moment he jumped off the stage, the short and fat disciple's body trembled. All of the fire disappeared and the disciple fainted. Wang Lin didn't kill him. To kill a foundation establishment junior was simply too shameful. As time passed, many outer sect disciples died. After 7 days, aside from the 100 that made it through, 50% of the remaining outer sect disciples had died. The remaining ones all either gave up ahead of time or both sides were heavily injured, so they lived. During these 7 days, 4 people among the outer sect disciples caught people's attention. Among the 4 of them, there was a gray-haired old man at the late stage of core formation. Everyone he encountered was killed by the same technique. All he did was point at the person, said the word die, and his enemy would fall over and die. When Wang Lin saw this technique, he immediately thought of the Jai realm and was shocked. However, when he looked closely, this technique was different from the Jai realm. Death spell. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin guessed the name of the spell. Back in the Sea of Devils, his Ji realm was mistaken for the death spell. That's how he learned about it. This death spell was very difficult to cultivate. In his 500 years of cultivation, this was the first time he had seen it. The other person was a very small and thin young man. Although he was only at the early stage of core formation, he was like a wild beast. He was also able to detect the flow of spiritual energy before someone could use a technique, and would act accordingly. If he was fighting someone stronger than him, it wouldn't be of much use, but against people of the same cultivation level, it was a heavenly advantage. Wang Lin couldn't help but appreciate this talent. He even had the urge to take him as a disciple, but he quickly threw that idea out of his mind. The third person was someone Wang Lin was familiar with. It was the butcher-like cultivator from Cave. He had a talisman treasure that had killed countless people. Everyone he battled was killed by the talisman. As for the last person, it was Wang Lin himself. He breezed his way through the competition and knocked out every disciple with just a wave of his sleeves. This would naturally catch the attention of everyone. However, this was something Wang Lin was doing on purpose. Only by doing this would it not seem strange when he enters the inner sect. As for Liu Mei, he assumed that she had some sort of agenda. Even if she didn't appear in the competition, she would be able to get into the inner sect somehow. Time quickly passed and 7 more days went by. Of the 100 or so disciples, only 4 remained. It just so happened that the 4 remaining people were the 4 that caught the eyes of the soul refining sect. This was the day of Wang Lin's battle. He stood on the stage as he watched his opponent walk onto the stage and reveal a weird smile. The person who came up wasn't a stranger, but the butcher-like cultivator from Cave 743. The person in charge of this battle was an early-stage nascent soul cultivator from the inner sect. He was already middle-aged with graying sideburns. He looked around and coldly said, "Battle, start!" The moment he finished speaking, the butcher-like cultivator bitterly smiled and said, "I give up." The nascent soul cultivator was startled. He looked at the butcher-like cultivator and asked, "You give up?" The butcher-like cultivator quickly nodded and said, "I surrender." With that, he quickly got off the stage. His heart was pounding as he secretly thought, "I still have the restriction that brat placed in my body. He could have killed me with just a thought." After he got off the stage, he let out a smile to try to please Wang Lin. Wang Lin let out a smile and faintly shook his head before walking off the stage. The nascent soul cultivator thoughtfully looked at Wang Lin and then went on to manage the second battle. The battle between the old man who controlled the death spell and the young man with very good instincts was quick. The young man wasn't able to resist the death spell at all. When he wasn't able to hold on anymore, he was saved by a ray of spiritual energy that came all the way from the inner sect. At this point, only two people remained in this outer sect competition: Wang Lin and the old man who was named Sima. The battle between the two started on the second day. Sima's eyes were gloomy as he stood on the stage. He had cultivated the death spell for so long just for this day. Once he enters the inner sect, he will have a chance to form his nascent soul. Moreover, the soul refining sect's soul flag would go very well his death spell. According to his teacher, if he cultivated both at the same time, his power would be close to that of the long-lost and legendary G realm. When thinking of his teacher, his eyes were filled with a hint of fanaticism. His teacher was able to kill any nascent soul cultivator just by uttering the word die, and only a few soul formation cultivators would be able to escape. In his mind, his teacher had the ability to challenge soul transformation old monsters. Death spell. Unless someone has a much higher cultivation level than you, they won't be able to resist the death spell. The death spell is rumored to come from the ancient cultivation world, when the cultivators back then tried to mimic the Jai realm. Rumor has it that cultivating the death spell to its peak allows one to gain a sliver of the Ji realm. His master's words still echoed in his head as Sima stared at his last opponent. He didn't consider the young man named Qingmu a threat at all. Killing intent flashed across his eyes and he said, "Die!" The death spell shot out toward Wang Lin as he said the word. Thank you all for the support, especially for the large golden gifts from Leo. Leo is so touched he could cry. By the end of this month, Leo's video is facing a challenge in the popular rankings. Hoping to get more likes for the video. Chapter 383, Inner Sect of the Soul Refining Sect. The death spell was created by ancient cultivators who studied the Ji realm. Although it was difficult to cultivate, it was easier to control than the impossible to control Ji realm. Once it was completed, all one would have to say was die, and the targeted person would immediately die. In order to cultivate this technique, one has to fuse 3 auras into one. The 3 auras are the death aura, yin aura, and killing aura. The death aura comes from absorbing energy from corpses. Although this is a type of yin energy, it is filled with death. The second, yin aura, is yin energy from the souls of females. This yin aura contains life. After obtaining those 2 auras, the cultivator has to fuse them and then combine the result with a third aura, the killing aura. After fusing the 3 auras, they will experience a trial with only a 10% chance of survival. Whoever lives through it will be able to start using the death spell. Once one starts cultivating the death spell, they will have to suffer an unimaginable amount of pain every day and go through a trial every 3 years with only 10% chance of surviving each one. After experiencing several cycles, the death spell reaches its first stage of completion. If one wishes to continue to cultivate it, their chance of death increases. This spell tries to mimic the Ji realm. However, it is much weaker than the Ji realm and much more dangerous to cultivate, making it somewhat pyrrhic. Although its offensive capability is amazing, the death spell eventually became a lost technique as fewer and fewer people cultivated it. Sima said the word die and activated the death spell. A strange fluctuation of spiritual energy immediately began to spread out from the finger he was pointing with. The air was like a calm pool of water that just had a rock thrown in. Countless ripples spread in the air. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a mysterious light. He didn't move at all as he experienced the death spell. The moment Sima pointed at him, he felt a sliver of yin aura inside his body. This yin aura was very different from the yin energy he had used to cultivate the underworld ascension method. The moment that yin aura appeared, another aura appeared within his body. The appearance of this aura shocked Wang Lin. If it had appeared in his original body, he wouldn't be surprised, but this body hadn't killed much at all, yet a bit of killing aura still formed. Although this killing aura was faint, it fused with the yin aura to form a very sharp blade that charged directly into his origin soul. However, with Wang Lin's strength, he only needed one thought to destroy this mysterious power. With one thought, his origin soul froze this mysterious power. Due to his understanding of the G realm, he was able to instantly see through the death spell. Although the death spell was powerful, it was still far too weak compared to the G realm. The G realm was a mutation from the divine retribution lightning. It would instantly kill cultivators of the same realm. This death spell was a technique that could kill anyone with a lower cultivation level in one hit, but had very little effect on people with higher cultivation levels. For example, if a mid-stage core formation cultivator were to use it, they would instantly kill anyone with a lower cultivation level. Even against cultivators at the same level, it had a chance to succeed, and if not, it would at least shock the enemy. However, when facing a late-stage core formation cultivator, this technique was not very useful, and if the user was not careful, they would be affected by backlash. This was far too weak compared to the G realm. Wang Lin faintly shook his head. Although this death spell was mysterious, it was useless to him. With a thought, the mysterious power of the death spell disappeared from his body. The moment it dissipated, Sima's pupils shrank, his body trembled, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. He wasn't able to contain the injury caused by the backlash of the death spell, so he fell to the ground. At this moment, another ray of spiritual energy shot out from the inner sect and dragged Sima's body into the inner sect. Without any suspense, Wang Lin became the winner of this competition. The inner sect disciple in charge of this fight clasped his hands at Wang Lin and said, "My name is Wang Zhen. The next time we meet, I'll have to call you junior apprentice brother. Qing Mu, come and follow me to meet the elder." Wang Lin nodded and smiled. He followed Wang Zhen into the inner sect. The inner sect of the soul refining sect was like heaven. When he passed through the formation, he saw 3 heaven-piercing mountains. As they flew, Wang Zhen explained, these 3 mountains belong to the 3 factions that exist within the soul refining sect. They are soul refining, soul extracting, and soul sealing. Wang Lin nodded and looked toward the 3 mountains. Behind the 3 mountains were giant rings of golden light. They each seemed to contain their own universe as they lit up the entire sect. Those 9 golden rings of light are where the 9 soul formation seniors cultivate. One day I'll reach the soul formation stage and become the 10th golden ring. Wang Zhen's voice was filled with desire. Wang Lin looked at the golden rings of light. From here he could clearly feel that the 9 golden rings were emitting powerful spiritual energy. If I can recover, none of the cultivators in the 9 rings of light will be a match for me. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. Wang Zhen turned his head and asked, "Qing Mu, do you know about Sang Liu?" "Sang Liu?" Wang Lin calmly nodded and said, "I've heard of him. My soul refining sect had 10 soul formation cultivators, but one of them was killed by Sang Liu." Wang Zhen's eyes were filled with admiration. "He is my goal. One day, I'll become the #1 cultivator below the soul transformation stage on Suzaku." "Oh, really?" He thought for a long time but couldn't remember when he killed a soul formation cultivator from the soul refining sect. Wang Zhen said, "Not many people know of this though. This soul formation ancestor was visiting other countries but got into an argument with Sang Liu and was killed by him." Wang Lin rubbed his nose. He really couldn't remember at all. "This Sang Liu sure did disappear at the right time. My soul refining sect Eston Tian was about to go ask him about this matter." Wang Zhen sighed. "Ancestor Du Tian?" Wang Lin's eyes lit up. "It's not a big deal to tell you this now since you will become a member of the inner sect. Our soul refining sect has 2 soul transformation ancestors. One of them is Ancestor Du Tian." Wang Lin raised his head. He could faintly see a trace of a blood-red aura behind the 9 golden rings of light. As the 2 talked, they arrived at the soul refining mountain. At the top of the mountain there was a hall made of green stones. Wang Zhen said, "Qingmu, go inside. The elder will arrange things for you." Wang Lin nodded and calmly walked into the hall. The hall was completely dark. The moment he entered, he felt a pressure surrounding him. Only this pressure was nothing to Wang Lin. He revealed an expression that made him look like he couldn't bear this pressure and stopped walking. After a few seconds, the pressure receded and an ancient voice said, "Come up!" Wang Lin released a look of relief and walked up. The hall suddenly lit up, and green lights lit up around the hall. At the center of the hall sat an old man wearing a green robe. He was looking at Wang Lin. This person's cultivation level had reached the peak of the late stage of nascent soul. He was only missing his own domain to reach the soul formation stage. The old man withdrew his gaze from Wang Lin and blandly asked, "What is your name?" Wang Lin clasped his hands and respectfully answered, "Disciple's name is Qingmu." The old man's eyes became serious, and he asked, "How did you break Sima's death spell?" Wang Lin calmly responded, "Disciple has hidden his cultivation level. My real cultivation level is at the peak of the late stage of core formation, so the death spell naturally wasn't able to hurt me." The old man nodded. From his point of view, this Qingmu was not lying, and had indeed hidden his cultivation level. From the moment he entered, the old man noticed that his cultivation level was not at the mid-stage of core formation, but at the peak of the late stage of core formation. The old man arrived before Wang Lin in the blink of an eye. His finger was as fast as lightning as he pressed it between Wang Lin's eyebrows. Wang Lin didn't dodge. The moment the finger touched him, a cold energy entered his body, but with Wang Lin's origin soul, he wasn't worried at all. Shortly after, the old man withdrew his finger. His eyes were no longer cold. He said, "I am the head elder of the Soul Refining Mountain. You can go to the side mountain to pick up your token and clothes. You can also go to the Soul Refining Mountain's library to pick out a technique. Also, you can open up a cave on any part of the mountain to cultivate. There are no teachers in the Soul Refining sect. Everyone cultivates on their own. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Now go." Wang Lin nodded and respectfully left. Shortly after he left, two powerful divine senses appeared inside the hall. "Junior apprentice brother, how is this person?" The old man snorted and said, "Nothing to worry about." "Junior apprentice brother, in these past several years, all of the ancestors have been in closed-door cultivation. We have to hold down the fort and not let anyone with ill intent enter." The old man's voice was cold as he said, "What a joke. It is not like we already have a lot of people in the soul refining sect with ulterior motives. One more be too much, and one less be too little. 1 out of 10 disciples under my 2 senior apprentice brothers have ulterior motives. You two should manage your own mountains. Matters of my soul refining mountain are none of your concerns. Junior disciple's grievance is strong. That junior with the anticipation intuition was chosen by me. That person who knows the death spell was picked by the junior apprentice brother in charge of the soul sealing mountain. The last person left is the winner of the competition. Is junior apprentice brother still not happy?" The old man's expression was ugly. "What nonsense. Both of them have special abilities, but this person only has a slightly higher cultivation level. I won't be sending 2 senior apprentice disciples off." The 2 divine senses let out a loud laugh and then dissipated. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense as he walked along the mountain. All of the soul formation and above cultivators are in closed-door cultivation, and the soul refining sect is being managed by the 3 of them. Wang Lin pondered this as he walked toward the side hall. After he got his token and clothes, Wang Lin noticed that it was still early in the day, so he went to the library. As time goes on, a heavy dizziness is setting in. My mind can't cope. Tomorrow I will continue to burst forth with all my might. In 12 hours that will be doubling the likes for the video, hoping that everyone is ready with 2 likes for Leo. Thank you. Chapter 384-3, Method of the Soul Flag. The library of the Soul Refining Mountain wasn't large. It only had 3 floors. Looking from a distance, this library seemed very normal. When Wang Lin entered, his eyes focused on an old man sitting inside. The old man was very close to the nascent soul stage. He was only 1 step away. The old man's face was yellow, his body was skinny, and he looked very tired. When he noticed that someone had entered, he opened his eyes and said, "Token." Wang Lin handed over his token. The old man looked at it and said, You can look around as you wish, but you are not allowed to go to the third floor. The time limit is 3 days. Wang Lin nodded and entered the library. Looking at the first floor, there were rows of shelves with jades, bamboo carvings, and even stone carvings. Wang Lin's eyes swept past them. There was a wide variety of techniques here, and they covered just about everything. There were techniques he already knew, and techniques he had never seen before. Only there was nothing about refining a soul flag. After making his way through the first floor, he entered the second floor. The number of techniques on the second floor was lower than the first. They were scattered around the room with descriptions of each technique. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and found the 4 words, Soul Flag Production Method. He picked up the jade to check and then frowned. This jade did indeed contain the method to creating a soul flag, but it was exactly the same as what everyone else did. If the soul refining sect really used this method, there was no way they would be as famous as they were now. After carefully searching through the second floor, Wang Lin, who had found nothing he needed, looked toward the third floor. He didn't do anything reckless and returned to the skinny elder. He clasped his hands and asked, "Senior, why can't I go up to the third floor?" The old man yawned. He looked at Wang Lin and said, "You can go up, so you can go up." What with all this nonsense? Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he stared at the old man. The old man frowned. He muttered something and then impatiently said, "You don't need to stare. You want to look for the method to make the soul flag, right? I can tell you that it isn't here, and it isn't in the third floor either. There are only 10 pieces of jade with the method to make the soul flag. If you want it, then go steal them. See, that cave over there has one. If you can steal it, you can learn it." Wang Lin looked toward where the old man was pointing. There was indeed a cave there. There aren't any rules in the soul refining sect. If you have the ability to kill, kill. If you want anything, steal it. And if you like any women, take them. If you don't have any ability, then find others who have no ability to cultivate together so you can protect yourself. No rules. One can do as he wishes. Wang Lin let out a faint smile. This soul refining sect was indeed interesting. Wang Lin waved his hand and a giant invisible hand grabbed the old man. The old man was startled, but he let out a laugh. The impatient look on his face disappeared and was replaced with battle intent. "Good, good. In these past 100 years, you are the 5th person to attack me. Okay, I'll play with you." With that, he moved his body to break free. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He casually waved his hand and the old man was thrown by a powerful force toward the wall. The old man's head was spinning from the collision. He was about to let out an angry roar when he was picked up and thrown again. Bang, bang, bang. The continuous collisions caused the old man to cough out blood. Seeing that Wang Lin was going to continue, he quickly shouted, "Grandfather, please stop. I am willing to call you grandfather. If you throw me any more, this old body will break." Wang Lin released his grip. The old man fell to the ground and got up after a while. He let out a bitter smile and said, "Junior apprentice brother, with your strength, just go steal what you want. As long as you don't kill too many people, no one is going to bother you." Wang Lin looked at the old man and left. Shortly after, he arrived before the cave the old man had pointed at before. There were some restrictions outside the cave. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and found that there was a middle-aged man cultivating inside. There was a side room with 2 female cultivators cultivating inside as well. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and his right hand moved, creating many illusionary restrictions. With a bang, all of the restrictions outside the cave collapsed along with the door. The old man in the distance shivered. He thought that the soul refining mountain had gained another person that couldn't be offended. The middle-aged man let out an angry roar because his cave was destroyed. He flew out in a ray of red light and without a word took out a small, purple flag. Hundreds of souls flew out of the flag. There were males and females among these souls. They let out bursts of sharp shrills and charged toward Wang Lin. "Destroying my cave, you recording death." Wang Lin remained calm. The person who charged out of the cave wasn't at the nascent soul stage. He was at the peak of the late stage of core formation like the elder from the library. However, the soul flag in his hand was a bit different. Wang Lin could clearly see a golden line on the soul flag, and the souls it released had a black aura around them. This was very different from the souls of normal soul flags that looked like they would dissipate if the wind blew on them. These hundreds of souls were full of energy, and a few of them gave off pressure no weaker than a normal core formation cultivator's growth. Wang Lin's eyes lit up because he saw what was different from this soul flag. The souls inside this soul flag had the ability to keep growing. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he reached out with his hand. The soul flag flew out of the middle-aged man's hand and into his. He wiped the divine sense from it and imprinted his own. Then he immediately felt a sense of harmony within his soul. With a wave of the soul flag, the souls that were charging at him were all absorbed by it. The core formation cultivator was dumbfounded. He sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately took out a black jade. He placed it on the ground, backed away, and shouted, "I admit defeat, I admit defeat. The cave is yours, the jade is yours, and the flag is yours too. I have 2 cultivation concubines as well. I haven't touched one of them yet. You can have him too. I am giving everything to you, so according to the rules, you can kill me." With that, he quickly backed away. Wang Lin looked at this person. He didn't attack but waved his hand. The black jade flew into his hand, and he carefully examined it. At this moment, 2 women walked out of the cave. Both of them were very beautiful and calm. They acted like this was completely normal and just quietly stood there. This is the real method for making the soul flags. However, it seems this isn't complete. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense and frowned. One of the 2 women, she was wearing a blue dress, saw Wang Lin frown after reading the jade and asked, "Senior apprentice brother, did you notice that the method seems incomplete?" Wang Lin raised his head to look at the 2 of them. Both of them were at the early stage of core formation. Wang Lin asked, "Why is it like this?" The blue-robed woman quickly said, "Senior apprentice brother must be Qing Miu, the winner of the recent outer sect disciple competition. I, your junior apprentice sister, am called Shu Yun. Shu Yun greets senior apprentice brother." As for the reason the soul flag is incomplete, it is because it is split into 3 parts. Each part matches the name of the 3 mountains: soul refining, soul extracting, and soul sealing. By combining the 3 methods together, you will get the real soul flag production method. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He put the jade away and looked at the cave. This place didn't meet his standards. He spread out his divine sense and flew toward the bottom of the mountain. The 2 women were startled. They looked at each other before quickly following Wang Lin. It was very dangerous to be alone in the soul refining sect. Unless your cultivation was very powerful, you needed to rely on others. This was why there were many groups. Once you lose a battle, you must hand over everything. Once you handed everything over, the other person wasn't allowed to kill you, or else the elders would interfere. These irrational rules made it so that no one felt like they belonged in the soul refining sect. However, no one knew why the soul refining sect did this. The senior apprentice brother they relied on was scared away by Wang Lin, so they would naturally need to follow Wang Lin. As Wang Lin flew, he frowned. He turned around and shouted, "Dante, follow me." He coldly looked at the 2 women and turned around to leave. The woman next to Shu Yun anxiously asked, "Senior apprentice sister, what should we do?" Shu Yun stomped her feet and snorted, "What else can we do? If he want let us follow him, then we want follow. Once he finds a cave, we will open our cave near him. Maybe the others will give him face and not bother our cultivation." Near the bottom of the mountain, Wang Lin's eyes locked onto a cliff. He pointed at the cliff, and a flying sword charged at it. It only took a few moments for a cave to form. After Wang Lin flew into the cave, he casually sent out a restriction and sealed the cave. Inside the cave, Wang Lin's gaze locked onto the wall. The reason he chose this spot was because it was closest to the spirit vein. Although he couldn't absorb the power of the spirit vein like before, he could still borrow its power. His body disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was before the main spirit vein under the soul refining mountain. After sitting down in the lotus position, he spread out his divine sense. What he found startled him. In the deepest part of the spirit vein, there was massive black gas that blocked out all divine senses. Spiritual energy from the spirit vein was being absorbed by the black gas. Wang Lin's divine sense was at the edge of the black gas. He was able to detect screams of souls that would occasionally appear inside the black gas. It stops divine sense? Wang Lin looked around and immediately found that there was a restriction around the black gas. It was because of this restriction that his divine sense couldn't enter. After looking at it for a bit, Wang Lin's eyes became focused. Could this be an ancient soul restriction? Wang Lin's heart trembled. The second watch has come. So thankful for the praise from the new clan leader. Last night Leo started from the starting point, immediately saw a new follower. I'm ecstatic. Thank you everyone. Chapter Golden Soul Flag. Ancient soul restrictions were the most rare of ancient restrictions. This restriction used a soul as its medium. Not only did the ancient restriction change in a strange fashion, it was also much more powerful. Normal restrictions could be seen as dead objects. They were like locks that needed certain keys to open. But a soul restriction wasn't the same. It could be considered a living thing. In reality, it was a soul fragment that was being kept alive as a formation. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering for a while, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was near the ancient soul restriction. Just as his body appeared, the black fog began to move and two ghostly eyes appeared. At the same time, a ghostly wail came from inside the fog. Wang Lin's origin soul shook after hearing the wail, so he quickly backed up. He stared at the black cloud and silently pondered. That roar just now was a warning. There must be a treasure if it requires a soul restriction to seal it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. His expression became serious as his hand quickly moved. One illusion after another appeared and surrounded his body. Break! Wang Lin shouted as he pointed at the black fog. The illusions around him transformed into a dragon and charged into the black fog. The two ghostly eyes were filled with anger, and the fog began to move. Then came a roar even more impactful than the last. The roar entered Wang Lin's soul, and he immediately felt pain coming from the cracks on his origin soul. Wang Lin quickly backed up with a gloomy expression. Just at this moment, the black fog began to move even more violently and rapidly shrank. All of the black fog condensed at the center. In the blink of an eye, the black fog had condensed into a beast. The moment the beast appeared, Wang Lin could see that there was a small golden flag inside the fog. The black fog came from this flag. The beast landed on the ground. With its head facing Wang Lin, it opened its mouth and stared at Wang Lin with a ghostly gaze. The illusionary restrictions Wang Lin shot out earlier were all still flashing on the body of the beast. The beast waved its head and shot two streams of hot air out of its nose. Then it looked at Wang Lin and suddenly charged toward him. Qilin? Without any hesitation, Wang Lin disappeared. The beast missed. It looked into the distance and let out a roar. The roar traveled toward the spirit veins but was blocked by a gentle force after 1,000 feet. The beast let out a few more angry roars before turning back into black fog and disappearing back into the small golden flag. Wang Lin appeared in a spirit vein more than 1,000 feet away. He frowned slightly as he looked back at where the black fog was. It's not a Qilin, but it is similar to the Qilin that Ling Tianhu had back in the celestial realm. That small golden flag must be a treasure of the soul refining sect. That beast is the guardian of the flag, as well as one of the souls inside it. It looks like the method to making the soul flag of the soul refining sect is closely related to the ancient soul restrictions. Only I don't know what the exact methods are. Wang Lin's eyes sparkled as he pondered. This beast's power is around that of an early-stage soul formation cultivator S. My cultivation hasn't recovered yet, so I am in no rush to capture it. Wang Lin pondered a bit before going back IO cultivate. After seeing Lu Mei, the feeling of danger Wang Lin felt toward Suzaku appeared once more. It was very bad that Liu Mei was able to find him. He secretly thought about it for a long time, but still couldn't figure out her motive. He also couldn't see through her cultivation, which was why he didn't kill her earlier. All of this is very strange, and Suzaku's decisions makes no sense if it comes down to it. I'll just leave Suzaku, go find Tianyunzi, and leave this mess behind. Wang Lin began to ponder. Time quickly passed. In the blink of an eye, several more months had passed. When he first arrived, the area outside of Wang Lin's cave was filled with wild grass and was rather bleak. After all, the place he chose was too remote. But now there wasn't any wild grass, and someone had even planted flowers with great fragrance nearby. All of the rocks were cleared away and replaced with smoothly cut stone. There were even a few stone canopies scattered around. Someone even made a pool at the center with small golden fish living in there that would occasionally create ripples. This gave the area fairyland-like aura. Shu Yun and Lu Wei were sitting under one of the canopies with a plate of fruit before them. They were chatting with each other and would occasionally look toward the door of the cave. Liu Wei's brow trembled as she said, Senior apprentice sister Shu Yun, do you think that when senior apprentice brother Qian Mu comes out, he will hate us for doing all of this without his permission? Liu Wei was one of the two girls from earlier. She had a small body and was a head shorter than Shu Yun, but her body was very beautiful and very exquisite. That shouldn't be the case since every cultivator likes a good environment. We made this place this beautiful. Even if he doesn't display any happiness on the surface, he won't be angry. Junior apprentice sister Liu Wei, relax. Shu Yun smiled as she picked up a fruit and took a bite. Liu Wei revealed a look of joy and said, in these past few months, senior brother Qingmu's reputation has been spread by us sisters, so our lives have been much better. If this can continue, it would be great. I managed to collect more broken souls in these past few months than I did in a year before. Shu Yun nodded and said, without talent, as long as no one steals from us, we can definitely make 100 soul flag. Then we can use that to cultivate and reach the late stage of core formation for sure. Liu Wei whispered, Senior apprentice sister, I am still a bit worried because we are getting more and more visitors every day. If Senior Qingmu finds out that it is us causing all of it, he might not let us off easy. He shouldn't before Shu Yun could finish speaking. A ray of red light suddenly descended from the mountainous peak and landed before the entrance of the cave. The light revealed a very handsome middle-aged man. His long hair flowing in the wind gave off the feeling of a celestial. Junior apprentice brother Qingmu, I am Gu Dongjian. I hope we can talk. Shu Yun stood up and said, Senior apprentice brother Gu Dong, please go back. Senior apprentice brother Qingmu is still in closed-door cultivation. Gu Dongjian frowned. He turned to look at Shu Yun and asked, the two of you are Qingmu's concubines? Liu Wei's face turned red, and she didn't say a word. Shu Yun's expression remained normal as she said, Senior apprentice brother, we are indeed senior apprentice brother Qingmu's concubines. Gu Dongjian's eyes became cold and he shouted, what a bunch of nonsense! It's fine if you wish to fool others, but you dare to fool me? The two of you scram. With that, he turned around and raised his hand. A ray of spiritual energy shot out from his hand, turned into the shape of a dragon, and charged toward the cave. The moment the dragon appeared, the wind began to howl. When the dragon collided with the door of the cave, the restriction on the door flashed, stopping the dragon, and at the same time a giant hand appeared. The giant hand caught the dragon and squeezed it. The dragon let out a miserable howl before shattering. Gu Dongjian's expression changed. He backed up several steps and stared at the cave. Wang Lin slowly walked out of the cave. When the sunlight hit Wang Lin, one could see black gas. The black gas slowly gathered behind him to form a giant skull. Thousand soul flag illusion. Gu Dongjian's expression changed again and he backed up even more. Wang Lin's eyes calmly scanned Gu Dongjian. This person's cultivation level was at the early stage of nascent soul. Surrender your soul flag, and I'll let you leave. Wang Lin's voice was calm. Gu Dongjian's expression turned gloomy as he took out a small flag with 2 golden lines on it. He shook the flag and one by one soul fragments flew out of the flag. They surrounded Gu Dongjian and roared at Wang Lin. He muttered as he took a few steps back and said to Wang Lin, I also have 1,000 soul flag. If you can win, I'll hand it over. The soul fragments around him suddenly charged toward Wang Lin. Some of those soul fragments were at the foundation establishment stage, and others were at the core formation stage. There was even one that had grown limbs and gave off the aura of a nascent soul cultivator. Wang Lin remained calm. He pointed with his right hand and said, Vortex. As he spoke, the soul fragments charging at him all let out a miserable screams and were sucked in by the vortex. Soon, all of the soul fragments besides the one giving off the nascent soul aura disappeared. The soul fragment, with the nascent soul aura, let out a scream and then used some method unknown to Wang Lin to escape the vortex. It quickly tried to escape into the distance. What's this? Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He reached out, and the soul fragment let out another miserable scream as it was caught. Wang Lin looked at this soul fragment and then at Gu Dongjian. Where did you get this nascent soul fragment? Gu Dongjian secretly sighed. When he saw Wang Lin use the soul vortex, he had already given up on resisting. Senior apprentice brother Qingmu, congratulations on being the 3rd person in the soul refining mountain to master the soul vortex. As for the nascent soul fragment, I traded a 900 soul flag along with the soul extracting mountain soul flag production manual for it. The new chapter is late, but it has over 500 more words than the previous ones. I hope not to be hit. Wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 386, Second Encounter with Liu Mei. In these 3 months of closed-door cultivation, with the help of the spirit vein, Wang Lin was able to break through past the nascent soul stage. All he needed to do now was reform his origin soul, and then his cultivation level would return to the soul formation stage. There were only 3 T marks left on his face, and Xianxia's seal was on the verge of breaking. Compared to all of this, his greatest achievement was that he found out that the entire soul refining sect was covered by something invisible. This invisible thing covering the sect would occasionally release soul fragments, and then hundreds of different spiritual energies would come out to fight for them. These soul fragments didn't always appear in the same place. They were scattered across every part of the soul refining mountain. After noticing this, his heart was moved. He quickly took out the soul flag manual and then, after checking it for a while, he was able to see through some secrets. The 3 methods to refine the soul flag were split into soul refining, soul extracting, and soul sealing. Soul refining was a method to refine any soul fragment in the world, and to seal it inside a flag so that it will grow instead of dissipate. Soul extracting was different. It couldn't refine soul fragments. It could only extract the soul from a living person and seal it inside a soul flag to control. As for the final one, soul sealing, Wang Lin didn't have anything to compare it to and was a bit confused. According to the soul refining mountain, the soul flags were in rank tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, and so on. The more souls a flag contained, the more powerful it was. 10 and 100 soul flags were very common, but once a soul flag gained 1,000 souls, it could use certain spells and its power would depend on the primary soul. In order to make 1,000 soul flag, one had to have a primary soul. This was a limiting factor that made 1,000 soul flags quite rare. Many hundred soul flag had reached the limit of 999 souls, but without a primary soul, it couldn't become 1,000 soul flag. There was only one requirement for a primary soul, and that was that it had to be stronger than all of the other souls in the soul flag combined. While Wang Lin studied the soul flag, he thought about the Qilin deep under the sect. That beast had to be that golden soul flag's primary soul. Wang Lin had collected a large amount of soul fragments throughout these 3 months of cultivation. For some reason, these soul fragments had gathered inside the spirit vein. When Wang Lin checked the spirit vein for the first time, they weren't there. Someone had clearly just collected them just before he checked. As he collected the soul fragments, he understood where all of the soul fragments in the spirit vein went. They were all absorbed by the soul flag underneath the sect. A person and a flag began to steal soul fragments from each other. However, the flag was locked in one place and wasn't as agile as Wang Lin. In the past 3 months, almost 90% of the soul fragments were taken by Wang Lin. There were strong and weak souls among these soul fragments. During these 3 months, Wang Lin found one that was at the early stage of nascent soul and used it as his primary soul. Not many nascent soul fragments appeared, only about 2 or 3 a year. Every time one appeared, the top disciples of the soul refining sect would fight over it. Guodongjian's words moved Wang Lin. It was just as he thought. The disciples of the soul extracting mountain extracted souls from bodies to seal into their flags. He decided that he had to find some time he get himself the soul flag production method of the soul extracting mountain and study it. As for the soul vortex, it was one of the 3 techniques inside the soul flag manual. The 3 techniques were condense, soul vortex, and blood sacrifice. Condense was rather simple. Although there were only 10 jades in the soul refining peak, many had made copies of this technique to sell. This technique was based on soul refining. With this technique, one could make the ethereal soul fragment take form and put it inside a soul flag. Soul vortex was a very rare technique. At least this was the case in the soul refining mountain. It required at least nascent soul level cultivation to learn, but not all nascent soul cultivators could learn it. For example, Guodongjian still hadn't managed to learn it. Once this technique was used, it would absorb a large amount of souls. Whether it was used for fighting or stealing souls, it was extremely powerful. The final technique was blood sacrifice. Using this technique would increase the power of the soul flag by several fold. 1/3 of the reason why the soul refining sect had so few disciples yet was so powerful was due to this technique. However, this technique was very difficult to cultivate. Even most of the late-stage nascent soul disciples hadn't been able to learn it. Wang Lin waved his hand, and the soul vortex disappeared. He took out a soul flag, and then a large amount of soul fragments were absorbed by it. Duo Dongjian's expression was very ugly. It had taken him years of hard work to gather all of those soul fragments, and they were stolen just like this. After letting out a sigh, he could only bitterly smile. This was the rule of the soul refining sect. He came here to steal Wang Lin's soul flag, but his was taken instead. He let out another sigh, clasped his hands at Wang Lin, and left feeling depressed. Wang Lin put the nascent soul he had caught into his soul flag. It soon began to fight with the nascent soul that was already inside. Wang Lin no longer looked at the flag. He knew that the winner would become the new primary soul, and the loser would become the winner's underling. Xu Yun and Lu Wei's hearts were pounding as they silently stood to the side. Although Xu Yun looked confident before, she never would have thought that this senior brother Qing Mu would manage to master the soul vortex. Wang Lin looked around. This place was very elegant and contained a certain appeal. Wang Lin calmly and slowly said, "I'll drop the matter of the two of you changing the surroundings of my cave. You two, leave quickly." Xu Yun revealed a pleading expression and said, "Senior apprentice brother Qing Mu, the two of us won't bother you. If we leave now, the soul fragments we worked so hard for will be stolen. The two of us only want a safe place to cultivate. We definitely won't cause you any trouble." Wang Lin didn't speak, but his eyes became cold. Xu Yu's heart trembled when that gaze fell on her. Liu Wei was already timid, and at this point she couldn't hold it in anymore, so she started crying. Liu Wei was very talented. She reached the mid-stage of core formation relatively quickly. Then, during an outer disciple competition, she gave it her all and became an inner sect disciple. But after entering the inner sect, it wasn't what she expected at all. The inner sect was a place of the strong devouring the weak. It was far too different from what she expected a cultivation sect to be. Wang Lin frowned. He waved his sleeves and was just about to throw these two out when he suddenly raised his head and stared at the sky. A green figure that looked like a fairy descended from the sky and landed 100 feet before Wang Lin. "Yi Mei." After seeing this woman, Wang Lin frowned even harder. Liu Mei let out a faint smile and said, "Brother Qing Mu has recovered most of his cultivation. That calls for celebration." The moment Liu Mei spoke, Wang Lin pointed to the air, causing Xu Yun and Lu Wei to faint. "Liu Mei, just get to the point. There is need to pretend. You're only ruining the past image I had of you." Wang Lin stared at Liu Mei. His voice was cold. Liu Mei looked at Wang Lin. She let out a sigh and said, "Wang Lin, a great calamity is about to befall upon you. Go leave planet Suzaku." Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He didn't say anything as he waited for Liu Mei to finish. Liu Mei whispered, "I won't lie to you. You already know that I am someone from the country of Suzaku, but I am not an ordinary disciple. My master is the #1 cultivator in Suzaku, Juke. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Everything in his mind suddenly became clear, and he asked, "What happened to Red Butterfly after her battle with me?" After listening to Liu Mei, he suddenly made a connection and came to a terrifying conclusion. Liu Mei revealed a hint of appreciation. She looked at Wang Lin and said, "Red Butterfly was killed by my senior apprentice brother." Wang Lin sucked in a breath of cold air. After confirming his speculation, he said, "It looks like my battle with Red Butterfly was only a dogfight to certain people." Liu Mei bit her lower lip and whispered, "Brother Wang, you should leave. The sooner the better." She looked at Wang Lin meaningfully, let out a sigh, and left. As Liu Mei left, she let out a sigh and thought, "Wang Lin, Liu Mei was ordered by Master to leave my mark on your Tao heart. This is a fate Liu Mei can resist. I can disobey Master's order, unless your shadow appears in my Tao heart. There is no way for me to lose this battle between our Tao hearts, only I." Liu Mei comprehended the thousand fantasy ruthless domain and showed emotions on the surface while my heart remained ruthless. How could you win? In her eyes there was a hint of ruthlessness, but it was hidden by her acting. Wang Lin was still frowning as he looked at Liu Mei's back. Although Liu Mei seemed to have pointed out the problem, it also left countless uncertainties. Wang Lin frowned again and muttered to himself, "This whole thing is strange. I keep having this weird feeling about Liu Mei." Strange? Shortly after, he looked at Xu Yun and Liu Wei. He waved his hand and moved the two women 1,000 feet away from his cave. As he was moving them, his heart started trembling as if he had suddenly remembered something. His right hand reached out and pulled the two women back. Their expressions while passed out were very different. Yu Shun's earlier expression was very strong and determined, and she was talking for the other girl. But now that she was asleep, her expression showed a hint of weakness and helplessness. Wang Lin's earlier impression of the other woman was that she was very weak. However, now her expression was very determined and ruthless. She was clearly one of those that appeared to be weak, but was in fact very strong on the inside. Wang Lin felt like lightning had struck his brain and his eyes sparkled. He looked up toward where Liu Mei went and sneered. Now I understand why I get this strange feeling every time I see Liu Mei. Although she shows all these emotions like she cares, she's actually using it to hide her true ruthless nature. The end of the year is here, brothers. Give a like for Leo. Chapter 387, Main Battle Soul. As Wang Lin stared at where Liu Mei disappeared to, his eyes turned cold. I can see through Liu Mei's cultivation, so she must have a higher cultivation level than me. Otherwise, she wouldn't become Zhugezi's disciple. Only I don't know why this woman is coming into contact with me. Wang Lin frowned even harder. He waved his hand and Xu Yun and Liu Wei landed dozens of feet away. Wang Lin wasn't a kind person, but looking at the fact that the two of them passed out allowed him to see through Liu Mei, so he didn't kick them away. Liu Mei didn't take this chance to kill me before my cultivation recovered, so her goal isn't for me to die. Her contact with me seemed to be filled with emotion, but also some ruthlessness. This is strange. She definitely doesn't have any good intentions. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. Shortly after, he waved his sleeves, walked into his cave, and sat down in the lotus position. Cultivation is no longer a problem. Once my origin soul recovers, my cultivation level will return to the mid-stage of soul formation. The most important thing now is to recover my origin soul. I need to find even more powerful spiritual pressure. Only then can I force my origin soul to reform. Wang Lin pondered a bit before disappearing. He reappeared deep underground where the spirit vein for the soul refining mountain was located. This was the lowest part of the spirit vein. 3,000 feet to this left was where the golden flag was. At this range, the qilin inside the soul flag couldn't bother him. While sitting here, Wang Lin could feel the pressure from the surrounding spiritual energy gathering towards him. Wang Lin took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. This time he didn't absorb any of the spiritual energy, but used the pressure to quickly reform his origin soul. Time slowly passed. Xu Yun and Liu Wei woke up to find that they weren't outside the range of the cave, so they had a thought. After the two discussed it for a while, they made a small cave near where they woke up and quietly cultivated. On this day, Wang Lin was condensing his origin soul like crazy by borrowing the spiritual pressure from the surrounding spirit veins when he suddenly opened his eyes. Although his origin soul hadn't fully recovered, it was in a much better state than it was a few months ago. Right now, there were only 2 marks left on his face. Wang Lin's eyes sparked. He spread out his divine sense and locked onto the golden soul flag 3,000 feet away. At this moment, an illusion suddenly appeared next to the flag and a roar came out of it. The giant qilin appeared next to the flag with eyes filled with bloodlust. Roar! The illusion quickly backed up after hearing the roar and quickly took form. Wang Lin recognized this person. He was the head elder of the soul refining mountain, the late-stage nascent soul cultivator who only needed to comprehend his domain to reach the soul formation stage. Damn it. This 100,000 soul flag is getting stronger and stronger. When will I ever be able to refine the flag with my cultivation speed? The old man's face was gloomy. That qilin beast didn't actively attack the old man like it did Wang Lin. Within its bloodthirsty eyes was a hint of mockery. Damn animal, the old man shouted. The ancestors have decreed that the flag sealed under the 3 peaks belongs to anyone who can refine it. One day you will be my property. Roar! The qilin snorted, and the disdain in its eyes deepened. The old man slapped his bag of holding, and a faint golden flag appeared. He waved the flag, and countless souls came out. At the front was a late-stage nascent soul as the primary soul. Behind it were 10 mid- and early-stage nascent souls, and behind them were countless other souls of varying cultivation levels. The old man shouted, 10,000 souls, devour! He pointed the flag at the Kulin, and then all of the souls let out roars as they charged toward it. The Kulin raised its eyebrows and moved like lightning. Instead of dodging, it charged into the souls and began to devour them like crazy. This was obviously not the first time the old man had dealt with this beast, so he wasn't shocked at all. The old man watched as the beast devoured the souls. Every time it devoured a soul, it would become a bit larger. With his cultivation level, he originally wasn't a match for this Kulin at all, but he specialized in refining souls. With the 10,000 soul flag, he could just barely hold his own. Shortly after, the old man's hand began to move very quickly. He was forming different seals. Soon, blood began coming out of the pores in his hand. His expression turned very serious, and then a ball of blood appeared before him. The old man shouted, "Blood sacrifice!" Right after he finished speaking, the ball of blood suddenly exploded into countless specks and covered the whole area. The souls devoured by the Kulin suddenly began to move like they had just received a large amount of nourishment. They were trying to leave the Kulin's body. There was a large amount of souls outside attacking the Kulin under the command of the primary soul. The nascent souls could actually use spells to attack as well. As a result, roars came from inside and outside the Kulin. However, the Kulin didn't panic, and its eyes were still filled with disdain. The Kulin suddenly let out a vicious roar. Black gas came out of the golden flag and formed another demonic beast. The two demonic beasts looked exactly the same. The old man's expression became ugly. The last time he fought with the Kulin, he was forced to retreat when the second one came out. Now that he saw it again, his expression became gloomy. He slapped his bag of holding again, and a black light appeared in his hand. The object inside the black light was a bell with a purple wooden handle that had some complex engravings on it. I traded a very rare treasure for this soul-sealing bell from the soul-sealing mountain just to deal with you, the old man shouted. Then he shook the bell in his hand. As the bell rang, human-shaped beasts with a single horn on their heads appeared and charged toward the Kulins. The two Kulins continued to roar as they were being trapped. The old man revealed a look of joy as he focused on controlling the treasure in his hand. However, just at this moment, more black gas came from the flag, and a third Kulin appeared. The old man let out a frustrated roar. This time he gave it his all and forced out the third Kulin. However, today was also when he felt the most helpless. At first he thought that there was only one Kulin, but when he used his 10,000 soul flag to trap the first Kulin, a second one came out. The second time he came, he lost to the second Kulin. For his third visit, he spent a lot of effort to get the bell but found out that there was a third Kulin. As a result, he couldn't help but think that after the third Kulin there would be a fourth, fifth, sixth. No wonder no one could take this flag away after it says, "Been here for so long." The old man sighed and was about to give up. But a powerful divine sense suddenly descended from all sides. The old man's expression changed greatly. He wasn't able to resist this divine sense at all. He had only ever felt this when facing a soul formation ancestor. However, compared to back then, the feeling was several times stronger. This must be a soul formation ancestor who came out of closed-door cultivation. The old man quivered and quickly said, "Disciple Wu Daoqi greets ancestor." As the powerful divine sense swept by, the third Kulin let out a miserable scream and was trapped by a ray of black light. It roared as it struggled to break free. A cold snort came from the void, then a giant hand suddenly came out of the void and reached toward the golden soul flag. At this moment, the golden soul flag began to move. Then 3 more Kulins appeared and charged toward the hand. The 3 Kulins' eyes were vicious, but there was a hint of dread in them. With one slap from the hand, one of the Kulins shattered into countless soul fragments that all panicked and escaped in random directions. The remaining 2 Kulins quickly pounced and began to fight the hand. Another cold snort came from the divine sense, and then black gas came from all directions. The black gas condensed into a black lance and stabbed toward the Kulin. Wang Lin wasn't able to deal with this Kulin before, because his cultivation level was only at the mid-stage of nascent soul. However, now he had broken through the nascent soul stage into the soul formation stage, so he was basically a soul formation cultivator without a domain. Although he was weaker than normal soul formation cultivators, it was more than enough to deal with this Kulin. A roar more powerful than all the other Kulins combined came out of the golden flag, and along with it came a golden aura. All of the other Qilins immediately shattered into countless soul fragments after hearing that roar and moved toward the golden aura. As the Qilin shattered, Wu Daoqi let out a miserable groan. All of his treasures were fighting the Qilins, so he was hurt from the shock wave of the Qilin shattering. Terrified, he was about to back up to dodge when a figure suddenly appeared before him. The figure pointed at him and Wu Daoqi immediately passed out. As Wang Lin stood before Wu Daoqi, he reached out and Wu Daoqi's soul flag and purple wood bell flew to his hand. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the golden soul flag. So this is the real primary soul of this soul flag. The other Qilins were only its commanders. After the golden aura absorbed all of the soul fragments, it let out a roar that shook the entire soul refining mountain. A golden Qilin that looked completely real without any hint that it was formed by soul fragments appeared before Wang Lin. The last 2 days of the month are upon us. Wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. Right now, it's about doubling the likes for the VIDEO. Very grateful and will return the favor. Chapter Collecting Qilin Soul Flag. This Qilin looked almost exactly the same as the one Ling Tianhu had. The only difference in appearance was its color. Though its aura was far weaker than the one that belonged to the Sword Saint, Ling Tianhu. Qilin Soul Fragment! Wang Lin stared at the beast and reached out. Black gas came from all directions and transformed into a black lance. The golden Qilin let out a roar, then a ball of golden light suddenly appeared before it and smashed toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin moved forward and stabbed with the lance. Bang. After a loud bang that caused the surrounding spirit vein to crack, Wang Lin backed up 1 step and the ball of golden light dissipated. Interesting. Although Ling Tianhua's Qilin was alive, it couldn't use any spells because it lost its inheritance. Although this soul fragment is much weaker, it can use spells. It clearly still has memories of its inheritance. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He slapped his bag of holding and 2 bells appeared. He threw the 2 bells and they closed in on the Qilin. The Qilin raised its front paw and slammed down. This shock wave caused the surrounding spirit vein to shatter and slow down the 2 bells. Wang Lin snorted. He suddenly moved and lunged forward. The lance flew through the air and pierced through the Qilin. The Qilin let out a roar. Black gas escaped from where it was pierced and turned into soul fragments. Without a word, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out the soul flag. With a wave, all of those soul fragments flew toward his soul flag. The Qilin let out a roar and immediately sucked those soul fragments back into its body. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He moved his right hand and the soul vortex appeared. He began to fight with the Qilin over the soul fragments. With Wang Lin distracting the Qilin, the 2 bells immediate grew in size and closed in on the Qilin. The Qilin snorted out 2 streams of black gas that turned into 2 smaller Qilins, both of which pounced at the 2 bells. Wang Lin's right hand moved and sent out waves of restrictions to seal the 2 Qilins. Then the 2 bells trapped them and they were put away by Wang Lin. Looking at the soul fragments that floated out of the Qilin, Wang Lin's eyes sparkled. He snorted and shouted, "Damn animal! If you had the power of your ancestor, I wouldn't be your match. However, you are merely a soul fragment that managed to condense into an illusionary body. Breaking you will not be hard." With that, Wang Lin's hand quickly moved and 1 by 1 illusion restrictions appeared. The illusionary restrictions surrounded the Qilin and descended like a net. The Qilin roared and began to struggle, causing the restriction to shatter. However, Wang Lin's hand didn't stop. The restrictions appeared like crazy and continued to land on the Qilin's body. Sweat gradually started filling Wang Lin's forehead as he sent out countless restrictions in a matter of seconds. The Qilin began to roar even louder, but its body began to slow down like it was sinking in water. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He touched his bag of holding and a small flag flew out. This flag was the restriction flag. With a wave of the flag, countless black lances formed before him. Under Wang Lin's command, these black lances charged toward the Qilin. At the same time, Wang Lin's right hand didn't stop. He continued to create soul vortexes. His right hand moved like a ghost, creating 1 soul vortex after another. Countless black lances stabbed toward the Qilin, whose eyes were filled with anger. It shook its body and more than 10 balls of golden light appeared around it. Bang, bang. Several loud bangs could be heard as the lances and balls of golden light collided. Although a lot of the lances were stopped, some still made it past and hit the Qilin. Even more soul fragments poured out of the Qilin's body and were absorbed by the soul vortexes Wang Lin had set up. The Qian let out a loud roar and began to struggle even harder, causing the restrictions on its body to shatter one by one. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't think that this illusionary body formed by the soul fragment of a Qilin could be so powerful. This Qilin was already as strong as a late-stage soul formation cultivator. If it's given more time to grow, it will soon reach the power of a soul transformation cultivator. Wang Lin's eyes darkened. He raised his right hand and the beast trap flew out. It landed on the side and turned into the god-slaying war chariot. The beast had weakened greatly after the battle with Red Butterfly. However, the moment it saw the Qilin, its body shook and its eyes became filled with greed. The moment the Qilin saw the spirit beast, it let out a roar as if it had just met its natural enemy. It stopped struggling against the restrictions but revealed an intent to battle. When he saw this, Wang Lin was surprised. His eyes lit up and without hesitating he sent a seal to the chariot. For the first time the beast let out a roar of joy, and for the first time the beast didn't wait for the chariot to open or try to devour Wang Lin. It charged toward the Qilin with the black chains still attached to it. The Qilin let out a roar. Countless balls of golden light appeared before it to block the spirit beast's attack. The spirit beast let out a roar and smashed through all of the balls of golden light. With a bang, the spirit beast collided with the Qilin. Both beasts let out painful groans. The spirit beast had charged too quickly, so the chains on its body were pulled to their limit. The pain from the chains forced the spirit beast to back up. It turned around and attempted to bite the chains, but no matter what it did, it couldn't break the chain. It then turned toward Wang Lin and began to roar. Its intent was obvious. The Qilin isn't a match for the spirit beast. All of the restrictions on its body shattered, and it was sent flying while a large amount of soul fragments escaped from its body. The moment these soul fragments appeared, they were absorbed by the surrounding soul vortexes. In the blink of an eye, they were all absorbed. The golden Qilin's body wasn't as solid as before, and became more illusionary. As it looked at the spirit beast with frustration in its eyes, it let out low growls, but didn't dare to move forward. After all, it was only a soul fragment. When it was at its peak, it was stronger than the spirit beast, but right now, it was no match. After the Qilin was knocked away, the golden soul flag became unguarded. Wang Lin quickly appeared before the golden soul flag, and was about to grab it. However, the golden Qilin let out an angry roar and pounced at Wang Lin. Wang Lin sneered as his right hand reached out, and the chains on the war chariot immediately disappeared. Without the chains holding it down, the spirit beast let out a joyous roar as it opened its mouth and attacked the Qilin. The Qilin let out a frustrated roar. Feeling helpless, it gave up on attacking Wang Lin and attempted to escape. The spirit beast began to chase after the Qilin. A large amount of soul fragments flew out of the Qilin and were absorbed by the soul vortex. Wang Lin grabbed the golden soul flag. Right after he touched it, a cold aura entered his body and went through it a few times before disappearing. Wang Lin revealed a look of joy as he spat out some soul essence blood which the soul flag absorbed. "Rise!" Wang Lin let out a shout and he pulled the flag up. A mass of black gas the size of an arm charged out from where the golden flag was and went through the entire soul refining mountain. From a distance, one could see the black gas shoot into the sky above the soul refining mountain and beginning to spread. At this moment, all of the disciples in the soul refining mountain stared dumbfoundedly at the sky. They had already noticed the roars from underground, but they were simply too powerful, so no one dared to check. The golden rings between the three mountains gently started trembling, and a person walked out from the eighth ring. This person's hair was white and his face was gloomy. Just as he was about to go check what was going on, he suddenly stopped as if he had heard something. He turned around and bowed toward the two blood rings, as the ancestor commands. With that, he returned to the golden ring. Wang Lin held the golden soul flag, shook it, and said, "Primary soul Qilin, return!" In the blink of an eye, the Qilin that had been forced into a corner by the spirit beast, and almost devoured multiple times, let out a roar and disappeared into the golden flag. Wang Lin felt the soul flag in his hand tremble. He felt very happy as he quickly put it away. The spirit beast was extremely angry. It already had a deep hatred for Wang Lin, and because he had stolen the prey it was about to devour, it charged toward Wang Lin. Although Wang Lin couldn't truly control the spirit beast, he could still seal it. He pointed at the chariot, and countless chains appeared to lock down the spirit beast. As the spirit beast roared in anger, it was slowly dragged back into the chariot, and then it turned back into the beast trap. Wang Lin didn't put the beast trap back on but completely sealed it and placed it in his bag. He disappeared and reappeared on top of the soul refining mountain. At this moment, the black gas above the mountain was very thick. Wang Lin stared at the black cloud and began to ponder. The noise from the battle should have caught the attention of the soul formation and above cultivators of the soul refining sect, yet no one came to check. This matter is interesting. Wang Lin stared at the 9 golden rings and took few extra looks at the 2 blood rings. Although he hadn't recovered all of his cultivation, he wasn't afraid. Even if a soul transformation cultivator came, he could still tear open space and escape using the star compass. He vaguely saw a pair of ancient eyes filled with kindness glance at him from one of the blood rings, and then immediately disappear. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The end of the month is here. Wishing for the like button for the video. Brothers, do you still have likes for the video? Chapter 38 Light Spec. After analyzing the situation in great detail, he felt that this had something to do with him cultivating in the dream space. He had experienced many of the bead's mysteries in these past 4 years. When cultivating in the dream space, he could feel that those glowing orbs released a light that got absorbed by his body. As for those glowing orbs, he had analyzed them for a while, but still hadn't found their exact use. Wang Lin no longer used the technique to conceal his cultivation level, as 4 years of cultivation in a place like the back mountains was a good enough reason to explain it all. No one else knew that 20 years ago, in Drea space-time, he had already reached the 3rd layer. Also, for the past 20-plus years, he had been constantly practicing his attraction technique, and it had reached a terrifying level. In fact, no one in the country of Zhao would spend 20 years practicing such a basic technique. Suddenly, a white light appeared silently from the sky and covered everyone. The warm feeling came again, but this time, Wang Lin noticed a difference. There were faint flashes of strange symbols in the light. The symbols came together to form a whirlpool that quickly pulled everyone in, and they disappeared from the valley. When they reappeared, they were in the main hall. The sect head sat there, still wearing the blue gown. Next to him sat several elders. In the moment, several powerful divine senses scanned them. The sect head smiled. He nodded and said, "For years have passed and I'm very pleased that all of you have made considerable progress." Very good. Now, all disciples that reached 5th layer or higher, stay. The rest of you go and tell your masters of your harvest in these 4 years. In 3 days, Xuan Daozong will be here. This time, we must win. As for the changes in clothes, it will all be done after the competition with them. The people all replied in unison. All of the disciples below the layer left. Wang Lin looked around and didn't see Sun Daju. After leaving the hall, Wang Lin made his way to Sun Daju's herb garden. He sent out his divine sense and found that the seal on the gate didn't stop him at all. So his divine sense went into the garden, and he found Sun Daju there, cultivating. Sun Daju didn't notice his divine sense at all. This seal that terrified him before now seemed to be filled with flaws. He now felt that if he wanted to break this seal, he could easily do so. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense and respectfully called out, "Disciple Wang Lin is here to greet the master." After Sun Daju heard this, he hesitated for a while. After thinking for a long time, he somewhat remembered that he had accepted a disciple called Wang Lin 4 years ago. Then, he sent Wang Lin to the intense training. He was not sure if that trash had made any improvements. Due to his curiosity, he opened the gate to the garden and arrogantly said, "Come in then." Wang Lin walked in. Sun Daju examined Wang Lin and exclaimed, "You managed to get to the R&D layer?" Wang Lin nodded and respectfully said, "Disciple has trained hard in these 4 years and barely made it into the 3rd layer." Sun Daju blinked a few times. He seemed to remember why he had accepted Wang Lin as his disciple. He remembered that he was going to wait until this disciple reached the 1st layer and use the soul-searching technique, but after hesitating for a while he decided to give up. After all, it had been so many years, and the backlash of lowering his own cultivation didn't seem to be worth it. Sun Daju glanced at Wang Lin and said, "Fine. Since you reached the 3rd layer now, you are a true disciple of Sun Daju, and since you are my only disciple, starting today, you can come back and live here again. In a few days, there will be the competition with Xuan Daozong. You can follow me there and broaden your horizons. Also, since you reached the R&D layer, did you practice the attraction technique? Wang Lin's expression remained normal as he replied, Disciple has practiced the attraction technique, but still feels very unfamiliar with it. Sun Dazhu nodded and said, That's natural. To be frank, these basic techniques are all about practice. The more you practice, the better you will be at it. Your master practiced it for a whole year, and that could be considered the longest in the sect. See. As he was speaking, he moved his hand and a small colorful sword appeared and circled around the room before landing back in Sun Dazhu's hand. After practicing the attraction technique and reaching the second layer, one can start practicing the drive technique. The drive technique is what moves this sword. Of course, to reach this level, you must have at least reached the fourth layer, but with the competition so close, we can have you making a joke out of the sect. Your cultivation is low, so the chance of you going up is low, but you can lose the sect any face. A flying sword can still be controlled with the attraction technique. I'll give you a token, so go to the sword shrine and pick out a good flying sword to wear and to show off at the competition. Sun Dazhu finished talking and tossed a token toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression became strange. He opened his mouth for a long time, but didn't know what to say. Seeing Wang Lin's expression becoming strange, Sun Dazhu snorted and said, Don't think of this as a small matter. You must look good, because if you make me lose face, I won't forgive you. Back then, your master did the same thing. Just holding a flying sword earned my master a lot of face. Wang Lin wryly smiled and said, Disciple will definitely look fierce, master. Don't worry. The end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video. Don't hold back, it's expiring. Chapter 389, little friend. This old man has waited a long time for you. This person is. The eyes from the bloodlight disappeared in an instant. Wang Lin pondered for a bit, and his eyes sparkled. Whether I stay at the soul refining sect or not doesn't matter anymore. For my origin soul to completely recover, I will need some amazing pills. Other than that, it would require very powerful spiritual pressure. It's not that I don't have methods, but they a bit dangerous. Wang Lin looked at the soul extracting and soul sealing mountains with eyes filled with determination. He turned into a ray of light as he left the soul refining mountain and flew toward the soul extracting mountain. On his way there, a very exquisite woman was calmly watching from him from the side of the soul refining mountain. She let out a sigh and muttered, His recovery is simply too fast if I want to leave my shadow in his Tao heart. I must find out what his Tao heart is, however. I have been unable to see through his Tao heart in our interactions. Senior apprentice brother Wang, what exactly is your Tao heart? Wang Lin landed on the soul extracting mountain and spread out his divine sense before charging toward a cave. The cultivator inside the cave was the person with the highest cultivation level beside the head elder, Su Jinshi. The moment Wang Lin's figure appeared, Su Jinshi, who was cultivating, opened his eyes and revealed an ugly expression. Wang Lin stood inside Su Jinshi's save, looked around and calmly asked, Do you have the soul extracting jade? Su Jinshi pondered a bit and nodded. He couldn't see through this person's cultivation level, nor had he seen this person before. But he could tell by his clothes that this person was from the soul refining mountain. In the soul refining sect, the disciples of the three mountains were allowed to interact with each other. If one had the skill, they could learn all three techniques if they wanted to. Su Jinshi had gone to the soul refining mountain many years ago and got a soul refining jade. Su Jinshi clenched his teeth and said, I can give you the soul extracting jade, but I am 300 soul fragments short from refining this soul flag into 1,000 soul flag. If you can give me the 300 soul fragments, I can let you look at the soul extracting jade. Wang Lin looked at Su Jinshi. With his cultivation level, he felt it was beneath him to steal it. He took out his 1,000 soul flag with over 2,000 soul fragments, shook it, and 300 soul fragments flew out. Wang Lin reached out with his left hand, and the 300 soul fragments transformed into a black pearl. Then he headed towards Su Jinshi. Su Jinshi was also a decisive person. He took out a purple jade and handed it to Wang Lin. He asked, What is senior apprentice brother's name? Qing Mu. Wang Lin took the jade and scanned it. The jade did indeed contain the method to extract a living soul, how to keep it from dissipating, and finally how to use it to refine a soul flag. The soul extracting jade also had 3 techniques: soul calming, soul luring, and soul poison. Soul calming was the core to soul extracting. If soul calming wasn't used first, the success of soul extracting would be very low. After being used, the success rate increases greatly. Soul luring was the actual technique of pulling a soul out of a living person. As for the final one, soul poison, it was the most vicious and most powerful of the three techniques, on par with the soul-refining mountain-S blood sacrifice. Soul poison used a mysterious method to turn a living soul into poison that could silently kill. Once it has been refined enough, it will turn into a poisonous soul with the power of a core formation cultivator. If it was just this technique wouldn't be much, but a long time ago, a disciple of the soul-refining sect betrayed the sect and escaped. Using this technique, he went unopposed in a rank cultivation country and made his own sect called the Demonic Pill Sect. This person used some mysterious method to refine the poisonous soul into a pill, and then inject death aura into it to turn it into a green core. He called this the green core method, and this allowed him to reach the soul formation stage. He was considered a genius of his time. A green core and a golden core are very different. You can only have one golden core, but you can have many green cores. He used this method developed from the soul poison technique to reach the soul formation stage. He had tens of thousands of green cores at that point. When he attacked, he would send out thousands of green cores to explode. His power was something even soul transformation cultivators wouldn't want to mess with carelessly. After all, tens of thousands of green cores exploding was already earth-shattering. If he were forced him into a corner where he had to explode all of his green cores, the explosion would simply be too powerful. The soul-refining sect never took any action against him for betraying the sect, which confused many people. As the person disappeared, his legend also slowly faded into history. Xianxia looked at Wang Lin and asked, "Is senior apprentice brother Qing Mu going to go to the soul-sealing mountain to get the soul-sealing jade?" Wang Lin put away the soul-extracting jade and nodded. Xianxia bitterly smiled and said, "Senior apprentice brother is better off not going. There isn't a single soul-sealing jade at the soul-sealing mountain. Only soul formation ancestors are allowed to study the soul-sealing jade. The soul-sealing mountain only has a mixture of soul-refining and soul-extracting jades." Wang Lin's expression didn't change. He nodded and then disappeared. When he reappeared, he arrived at the soul-sealing mountain. Then he casually found a disciple and heard the same thing that Xianxia told him. Wang Lin also checked under the spirit vein of the soul-extracting and soul-sealing mountains. Only the soul-sealing mountain had a soul flag under it, and it wasn't very powerful. The soul fragments inside it were also very uneven in terms of power. It took Wang Lin almost no effort to retrieve it. As for the soul-extracting mountain, it was completely empty. It was clear that someone had taken the soul flag many years ago. After finishing all of this, Wang Lin raised his head and looked toward the 9 golden rings and 2 blood rings. After a while, his eyes were brimming with determination. Whether my origin soul will recover or not will all depend on today. I will fight the soul-refining sect's soul transformation ancestor. Only under the spiritual pressure of a soul transformation cultivator can my origin soul finally recover. At that moment, I can use the star compass to escape. Even if the soul transformation cultivator wants to catch me, they won't be able to. Wang Lin took a deep breath, and his eyes became filled with battle intent. He turned into a ray of light and flew toward the 9 rings of light. In his left hand he held the 10,000 soul flag, and in his right hand he held the restriction flag, with 999 sets of restrictions. With both flags in hand he arrived before the 9 golden rings. Just as he approached, he waved both of the flags. From the soul flag the golden qilin flew out. Behind it were 9 black qilins, and behind them were countless soul fragments. In just one moment the entire soul-refining sect was covered with soul fragments. The endless howls became the only sound in this world. This was the first time Wang Lin had used the 10,000 soul flag. Its power was beyond his imagination. The golden qilin let out a roar and charged toward the 9 golden rings. Bang, bang, bang! With a series of loud explosions, the qilin and the 9 dark qilins behind it collided with the 9 golden rings, causing them to reveal men and women of various ages. These 9 people were the 9 soul formation cultivators of the soul-refining sect. After they appeared, they stared at the Keelins with shocked expressions. The golden Keelin backed up a few steps, shook its large head, and spewed out 2 jets of black gas that spread out. As Wang Lin stood on top of the Keelin, it hesitated, but didn't shake its head. Instead, it stared at the 9 of them with a vicious gaze. "You sure have guts." At this moment, one of the middle-aged women, who looked average, among the soul formation cultivators looked at Wang Lin with a gloomy expression, and was about to attack. Wang Lin glanced at her and shouted, "Scram!" A monstrous aura spread out from Wang Lin. This aura was too much for the woman to handle. After all, Wang Lin had recovered his cultivation to the soul formation stage. He was just missing his domain. He was someone who fought against Red Butterfly, so his cultivation was a lot more powerful than most people's. This woman was only at the early stage of soul formation, and although he couldn't say he could kill her easily, it would not be hard either. He had killed quite a few of them already. There was a huge difference between someone who had killed others of the same cultivation level and someone who hadn't. With a shout from Wang Lin and a push from his powerful aura, the woman backed up. Her face was pale and filled with terror. Then she immediately became angry. After becoming a soul formation cultivator, she hadn't been shouted at by someone before. However, she suppressed her anger and sneered at Wang Lin. How could someone who became a soul formation cultivator be stupid? She knew that if this person came, he had to have something up his sleeve. The golden Keelin alone was not something she could fight against. Wang Lin stood on top of the golden Keelin and calmly said, "The 9 of you, make way!" Arrogant. A green-robed old man narrowed his eyes, snorted, and pointed his right hand at Wang Lin. A ray of spiritual energy shot out, turned into a chain, and flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin waved the restriction flag and countless restrictions flew out. The restrictions gathered into a black lance and Wang Lin thrust it forward. The lance collided with the chain, instantly shattering it. However, the lance kept going toward the old man. At the same time, Wang Lin waved the soul flag. The Keelin, along with the 10,000 soul fragments, let out roars. As Wang Lin said the word devour, all of the soul fragments charged forward. From a distance, it looked like there was a giant gust of wind inside the soul refining sect. Just at this moment, an ancient voice came from inside the blood ring and said, "Little friend, this old man has waited for you for a long time." A grand chapter. Not caring to read 4,500 words, can bear to split it into 2 chapters. As the donkey dies a martyr, tears flow wishing for the like button for the video. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 393, Amazing Gifts. As the voice came, a figure wearing a blue robe with hair extending to his waist walked out from one of the blood rings. With just one step, he arrived before everyone. His robe was very large, so as he moved, it also began to move. This person's face was gray and he looked very old, but his eyes shined like the stars. He carefully looked at Wang Lin and then waved his hand. "The 9 of you can leave." That wave contained a powerful pressure. The 9 soul formation cultivators respectfully bowed and disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and revealed an urge to battle. He couldn't see through the old man's cultivation level, but he was sure that this old man was at the soul transformation stage. "Little friend Seng knew, this old man has waited 2 years for this day." The old man looked at Wang Lin with a mysterious light in his eyes. Wang Lin was immediately able to recognize these eyes as the same ones from yesterday. He was surprised that this old man knew him. If Liu Mei could find him, then it wasn't strange for the soul refining sect's soul transformation ancestor to know as well. "For our meeting today, I'll first give little friend a small gift," he said, before pointing toward the soul refining mountain. His voice changed from the gentle tone it first had. It was now filled with pressure and killing intent. "Junior Liu Mei, you have 10 breaths of time to get out of my soul refining sect. If you don't, even if you read the disciple of the current Suzaku, I'll still kill you." Scram! Liu Mei's exquisite figure appeared above the soul refining mountain. She looked at the old man with a lovely expression and whispered, "Senior Junior has orders from my master and I didn't anger you. Why be like this?" Wang Lin's expression remained normal, but he quickly began to analyze what was happening. The old man calmly said, 6 breaths. Lu Mei sighed. She bit her lower lip and said, Senior, if Junior just leaves like this, Master will punish me. If Master asks what happened, I'll have no choice but to tell him. 4 breaths. Killing intent poured out of the old man. He reached out, and the image of a 30-foot-long flag appeared in his hand. Although this flag was only an image, a powerful pressure could be felt from it. For the first time, Lu Mei's expression changed greatly. 1 billion soul flag. She stared at the old man and clenched her teeth before disappearing and leaving the soul refining sect. The old man didn't even look at where Lu Mei had gone to. He then turned to Wang Lin with a mysterious light in his eyes. Little friend Sheng Niu, how was that small gift? Lu Mei's existence was like a thorn at Wang Lin's side. When she was around, he felt like he was being targeted by a cobra. Now that Lu Mei left, this feeling suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin bitterly smiled. What kind of small gift is this? Senior is willing to offend Suzaku. Rather than feeling happy, it makes me very afraid. This soul-refining sect ancestor is very interesting, thought Wang Lin. He was sure that Lu Mei had the ancestor's permission to enter the soul-refining sect, or else there would be no way for her to enter. This old man didn't kick her out before. He chose to do it today before Wang Lin. This was to tell Wang Lin that the soul-refining sect's relationship with Suzaku had broken down, and that all of it was for him. This was not a small gift. The old man laughed and said, this is not enough to offend the country of Suzaku. The current Suzaku is old and can make the entire planet listen to him. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Then he looked at the old man and said, what does Senior want? You can just tell me. The old man revealed a look of appreciation in his eyes and said, no rush. That was only the first gift. Now this is the second. Sheng Niu, your origin soul has almost recovered. The reason you came to find me was to borrow my pressure to help you recover. My second gift is to help you recover your cultivation. After that, he didn't wait for Wang Lin to speak, and his eyes lit up. A pressure several times more powerful than the spirit vein suddenly appeared around Wang Lin's body. Is it enough? Wang Lin's body trembled. Under this pressure, he felt like there were countless mountains on top of him, and crackling sounds came from his body. The gaps between the pieces of his origin soul were closing, but this speed was still too slow. Wang Lin clenched his teeth and said, not enough. The old man's eyes lit up. His hair began to move without any wind, and his robe began to flap. A pressure 10 times more powerful than before came down. Small cracks in space began to appear and spread as a result. How is this? Wang Lin's clothes were soaked by the blood that had been forced out of his pores. The vein on his forehead was bulging, and one of the 2 remaining T-marks disappeared. The current Wang Lin could clearly feel the gaps between the pieces close, meaning his origin soul was quickly being repaired. A small portion of it had already fused back together. A sense of comfort came from within his body and eased the pressure. Wang Lin took a deep breath and said, not enough! Oh, really? Okay, Sheng Niu. It has been 200 years since I last used my celestial spiritual energy. I am spending a lot on this second gift. The old man laughed and used the celestial spiritual energy in his body without any hesitation. A pressure very different from spiritual pressure descended. This pressure contained celestial spiritual energy. This reminded Wang Lin of the power from a celestial fragment collapsing. His body trembled and his origin soul reconnected at an amazing speed. After 5 breaths, the final T-mark on his face was gone. At this moment, a laugh came from Wang Lin, and his eyes lit up like the sun during dawn. His spiritual energy suddenly filled his body, and his origin soul reached every corner of his being. He felt a soreness from all over his body that soon turned into a comfortable feeling like he had been limited for far too long. Wang Lin let out a laugh, and then Sun Tai's seal collapsed as well. His cultivation recovered to the mid-stage of soul formation. In fact, it was even stronger than before. Wang Lin clasped his hands and said, thank you. The old man looked at Wang Lin. The praise in his eyes deepened, and he said, it is a bit too early to thank me. I have prepared a 3rd gift for you. Do you dare to receive it? Wang Lin took a deep breath. Now that he had recovered his cultivation, he gave off a dominating aura and faintly smiled. Why would I not dare? He understood that if the soul transformation ancestor was willing to expend so much, there had to be something that he wanted him to do. But he just didn't understand what a soul transformation ancestor would need his help for. Good. Xianxia, this old man's last gift is to help raise your cultivation level to the peak of the late stage of soul formation. As for your domain, you are on your own. I can help you there. With that, the old man flew toward the blood ring. Wang Lin pondered a bit, and then followed without a word. Outside the blood ring, the old man reached out and the 30-foot-long soul flag appeared once more. This time, it was still only an illusion. This is the soul refining sect's main treasure, the 1 billion soul flag. It is because of this treasure that, even though I am only at the late stage of soul transformation, I dare to fight against an ascendant cultivator. I'll tell you the reason later, but as long as this treasure exists, my soul refining sect will never die. However, if this treasure breaks, then my soul refining sect is finished. Now I'll use the soul force inside this soul flag to raise your cultivation level to the peak of the late stage of soul formation. The old man looked at Wang Lin with a sharp gaze and shouted, "Sit down in the lotus position." Wang Lin looked at the old man and did what he was told without any hesitation. If the old man wanted to attack him, there was really no need for someone this powerful to do all of this. However, Wang Lin's caution never dropped. If he detected anything wrong, he would escape with the star compass. The old man shook the 30-foot flag in his hand, and waves of roars came from within it. 10 soul fragments quickly flew out and surrounded Wang Lin. These 10 soul fragments all released purple and gold auras and were filled with arrogance. Wang Lin's pupils shrank. Each of these soul fragments had the power of a soul transformation cultivator. No wonder he can fight ascendant cultivators with this soul flag. Wang Lin felt like he understood a bit more. The old man whispered, "Little friend Xianxia, all of the soul transformation souls inside this soul flag are ancestors of the soul refining sect. When a soul transformation ancestor is about to die, they give up their body and become a soul fragment to be added to the soul flag. You have to remember that when I die, you must add my soul fragment into the flag as well." The last sentence from the old man was out of nowhere, causing Wang Lin's heart to tremble. He gained some more understanding of what was going on. Just at this moment, the 10 soul transformation soul fragments emitted a powerful gold and purple light that seemed to cover the entire land. A thick source of spirit energy from the 10 soul fragments entered Wang Lin's body. He didn't even have to absorb it, as it all rushed into his body. A strange scene appeared in the sky. There were 10 soul fragments connected with gold and purple light, and at the center was Wang Lin. The spiritual energy inside Wang Lin's body increased at a speed he had never felt before. In an instant, it had increased 1-fold, but it continued to raise without even pausing. 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-fold, all the way until 8-fold, and it was still growing. Xianxia, remember this old man's name. Du Tian, absorb as much as you can. This old man isn't stingy. Big brothers and little sisters, do you still have likes for the video? Wishing for the like button for the video to help. Chapter 391 Yunke Du Tian. These 2 words entered Wang Lin's ears and caused his eyes to become serious. However, he didn't have the time to think about it at the moment, so he focused solely on the growth of the spiritual energy within his body. A large amount of spiritual energy was transferred from the 10 soul fragments into Wang Lin through the gold and purple lines. The spiritual energy surged through Wang Lin's veins. Wang Lin could feel all the spores on his body open as the most well-hidden impurities within him were being forced out. Waves of a refreshing feeling filled his body like the spring wind, making him feel very comfortable. Shortly after, Wang Lin felt the spiritual energy in his body reach its peak. While his domain was still at the mid-stage of soul formation, his spiritual energy had broken through to the late stage. For Wang Lin, his domain had always been very powerful. With a mid-stage soul formation domain, he was able to battle against Red Butterfly's late-stage soul formation domain. As his spiritual energy grew, his combat strength grew as well. If the current him were to meet Red Butterfly again, the battle would be countless times easier than before. Red Butterfly was no longer a threat in his eyes. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He looked at the surrounding souls and began to ponder. Du Tian looked at Wang Lin and laughed. "Little friend Xianxia, have you absorbed enough from this 3rd gift?" Wang Lin pondered a bit. The fact that this ancestor was willing to give so much meant that there was something big he needed Wang Lin to do. Since Wang Lin had already accepted the gifts, he wouldn't refuse to help. Refusing was beneath him. However, with Wang Lin's personality, since he decided to help, he wouldn't let himself be on the short end when accepting the gifts. Senior, I can absorb as much as I can, correct? Wang Lin calmly looked at Ancestor Du Tian. The old man laughed and decisively said, "That is correct. Little friend Xianxia, this old man will not be stingy with this third gift." Wang Lin nodded and closed his eyes. This little guy is already full. Even if he wants to absorb more, he shouldn't be able to absorb much more for some reason. When Du Tian saw Wang Lin close his eyes, he had an ominous feeling. "Original body, let us both absorb," Wang Lin called out to his original body in his heart. This call crossed a long distance. At this moment, the original body in Chu opened his eyes. The two purple stars on the original body began to spin. There was no longer a primary or secondary body between the original and the avatar. Both were Wang Lin. It was as if he was split in half. When they fuse, they will become the real Wang Lin. There was a mysterious connection between the avatar and the original body, which was why the original body was hurt when his origin soul collapsed. Through the same mysterious connection, the original body was absorbing spiritual energy from his avatar like crazy. The original body's absorption was several times more powerful than the avatar's. After all, the original body was walking the path of the ancient gods, which devoured spiritual energy to survive. The 10 soul fragments around Wang Lin trembled, and the connection between them and him increased several-fold as they felt the powerful suction force from Wang Lin. The situation changed from the soul fragments forcibly injecting spiritual energy into Wang Lin to Wang Lin actively absorbing from them. This change caused Du Tian's eyes to widen. The muscles on his face twitched as he revealed a heartbroken expression. 10 breaths. In just 10 breaths of time, more than half of the spiritual energy within the 10 soul fragments was absorbed. Du Tian's expression was very ugly and he wanted to stop Wang Lin, but after remembering what he just said, he could only sigh. With his experience as a cultivator, he could immediately tell that Xianxia had an avatar. Xianxia was currently absorbing spiritual energy along with his avatar. The original body in Chu was being filled with spiritual energy. At some point, golden lines started coming out of the body and wrapping around him. Soon, a crystal cocoon was formed. The original body sat inside the cocoon as another star slowly appeared on his forehead and slowly became solid. Wang Lin was not a greedy person. At this moment, he opened his eyes and stopped absorbing. Du Tian let out a sigh of relief. He quickly waved the 30-foot flag in his hand, causing the 10 souls to return. He bitterly smiled at Wang Lin and said, "Little friend Xianxia, you really didn't hold back." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He stood up and felt the powerful spiritual energy in his body. He turned toward Zhuyu and his eyes became cold. Wang Lin's personality was very decisive. He won't bother anyone if he's left alone, but if someone messes with him, he will return the favor 100-fold. He was still someone who would get revenge. Li Yuanfeng. The coldness in Wang Lin's eyes dissipated as he turned toward Du Tian and clasped his hands. "Thank you, Senior, for the 3 gifts. If there is anything you need Junior to do, just say so." "I'll do my best." If Wang Lin said this, that meant that he was extremely grateful towards Senior Du Tian. Du Tian faintly smiled. The unhappiness from earlier completely disappeared. He did all of this just for Wang Lin to say this. "Little friend Xianxia, the reason I gave you these 3 gifts is very important. If you hadn't come to my soul refining sect, I would have gone out to search for you." Wang Lin looked at Du Tian and smiled. "Junior has already heard about the rumor that I killed a soul formation cultivator of the soul refining sect, so I assume Senior is looking for me to question me." Du Tian shook his head and smiled. "This is all a ruse. If I were to look for you for no reason, it would attract too much attention. However, if I spread a rumor saying that you killed a soul formation cultivator of my sect, people won't pay too much attention if I start looking for you." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. For this ancestor to be so careful, something unpredictable was going to happen. Du Tian looked at Wang Lin with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. After a while, he said, "Little friend, do you know why there are less than 10 rank 5 cultivation countries on this planet, even though the country of Suzaku has been in control for so long?" He didn't let Wang Lin reply. He revealed a look of helplessness and said, When the country of Suzaku arrived on this planet, there were 6 major sects within it. Then the disciples of those 6 sects spread out and formed the various cultivation countries on the planet. At the same time, the core disciples of those 6 sects were allowed to form rank 5 cultivation countries. This was the first group of rank 5 cultivation countries. My soul refining sect was one of them. Wang Lin's eyes remained calm. His expression didn't change. Du Tian raised his head to look at the sky and calmly said, "Time slowly passed. Whenever a rank cultivation country was about to reach the point of becoming a rank country, they would be beaten back to their original state in just one night. The country of Suzaku wouldn't allow another rank 6 cultivation country on planet Suzaku. My soul refining sect has had 3 chances to reach rank 6 throughout these countless years, but we were beaten back every time. Now we have long lost our country and can only exist as a sect." Wang Lin silently pondered. To become a rank 6 cultivation country was the dream of our first-generation ancestor, and even more so the dream of every generation of the soul-refining sect. Back before there was a single cultivator on planet Suzaku, back when the country of Suzaku was only a rank 5 cultivation country on planet 4 Saints, all 6 sects worked hard together. Through bitter struggle, we reached rank 6 and broke free from planet 4 Saints. Then we were given planet Suzaku by the Cultivation Union. Back then, my soul-refining sect had 3 ascendant cultivators. The other 5 sects all had several as well. The country of Suzaku was so powerful, but when we arrived here, what we found was not good. There was already another race here that used the power of tattoos, and they were very powerful. It was a bloody battle that lasted countless years. The 1 billion soul flag was completed during this battle. Although we ultimately won, planet Suzaku was damaged, and the country of Suzaku lost many ascendant cultivators. This is why the first-generation Suzaku created Mount Suzaku to become the central control point of planet Suzaku when the 6 sects split off into rank 5 cultivation countries. After that, it was a nightmare for all rank cultivation countries. All countries that followed Suzaku were ordered to not allow any rank 5 cultivation country to reach rank 6. Right now, the country of Suzaku only has 4 ascendant cultivators, and they are very weak. The Suzaku is afraid that the rank cultivation countries will turn on him and become the masters. He is afraid that the planet won't be secure. Wang Lin pondered. After a while, he looked at Du Tian and said, "Senior, what does everything you say have to do with me? Junior is merely a soul formation junior." Du Tian's eyes became serious. He looked at Wang Lin and said, "Word for word, it does relate to you." "Oh, really?" Wang Lin raised his head toward Du Tian. Du Tian slowly said, "You are one of the 4 candidates chosen by Xianxia to become the next Suzaku." "Xianxia?" Wang Lin frowned. Du Tian waved his hand.